I'll give you a minute, Tyler. Find your page. All right, if you guys would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll do that now.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, the time is 5:32. It is October 27th, and I'll call this regular meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. Roll call, please. Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Great. Do we have any staff report revisions to the agenda?
I would like to request to add the letter of support you all have in front of you by the Family Learning Center, either to the agenda or a topic that you can discuss.
Okay, so I would look for any feedback from the board. Why don't we give everybody just a minute to take a quick look at it and determine if you want to put in the consent agenda or if you would like to pull it out as a separate agenda item.
I'm okay with consent agenda.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well done.
Any other? I'll give it a minute. Hold on. I won't rush you.
We put in consent agenda. Do you mind answering a few questions about it still?
Well, if we have questions or discussion,
We put in the discussion of.
Yeah. Then why don't we just add it to the discussion items on the agenda? So I'll make a note for the record that Gloria, would it make sense to add this to business items or discussion and direction items?
Discussion and direction items.
Okay, so we'll make an amendment to the agenda that this will be 8C for the SFLC letter of support.
All right.
All right, any other staff report revisions to the agenda? No, okay. Moving on to public comment. If you're in person and you'd like to make a public comment, we encourage you to come to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. I now have a handy dandy timer. And if you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment, we'll do that after in-person public comment. If you're on Zoom and like to make a public comment, please click the raise hand button and we will promote you to panelist when we get there. And you also will have 3 minutes. And we don't have any public hearings today, so feel free to make a public comment about anything you'd like to. Public comment is welcome now.
Hello. Start.
Go ahead.
Hello, town trustees. Thank you for your service. I'm here to talk about the new residence under construction for Shane, Rebecca, and Dutch Goranson at 505 Green Street. The construction company has worked for 13 months on this project. We are close to wrapping up. We've actualized a very complex and efficient structure designed by esteemed architect Stephen Golick. There are 2 units, a 3-bed, 2.5 bath, and a 1-bed, 1-bath. This house stands as the first to greet visitors and locals alike as we enter town. While interesting and appealing to look at, the house also carries the substance of a modern and energy-efficient home for its occupants. The lots at 505 Green Street were undesirable at best and undevelopable at worst. The Goransons bought the lots with a dream and a plan to build a house that would allow them to live part-time in Silverton while covering or helping to cover their mortgage by short-term renting one of the units with a long-term vision of moving to Silverton full-time. The lots were zoned BP when they purchased the parcel. They were zoned BP during the 2-year planning process that included the triple threat of wetland, historic, and avalanche. And were zoned BP when Cody Bradford drove down the street and broke ground on the approved house. As part of the code rewrite, the designation of 505 Green was changed from BP to R2, which gave the Goransons the right, was changed from BP, which gave the Goransons the right by use to short-term rental, to R2, which does not carry the right by use. I'm standing here today as a small business owner, asking you to do right by the Goransons and allow them their use by right that they had originally. Grandfather them in, they deserve it. This would allow a young family to pursue a future in Silverton, which brings with it a host of long-term benefits. Shane is a lawyer Becca is a PT, and Dutch is a kid. I would like to acknowledge this and past boards' hard work, not only with the code rewrite, but also the curtailing and regulation of short-term rentals. This specific instance, in my opinion, is one of slipping through the cracks. I would like to put forth an unfortunate possible outcome if the situation is not remedied. The Gorensons may not be able to afford this house and thus would have to sell. Who then might buy such a large and expensive house? Probably someone who doesn't live here and can't afford to let it sit empty. There are plenty of examples of that around town, and I'm pretty sure nobody is thrilled about those. Please address this grievance at your earliest convenience. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, but I got copies for you guys.
Thanks.
Please. In this part of it. You.
We have other in-person public comment. You can come to the podium.
Right. My name is Sarah Moore. I'm the Director of San Juan Development here in Silverton and San Juan County. I'm here today to share an update on our support for both local businesses, including Dara Deli and the Dark Side program, which has received a lot of attention in the past 2 weeks. SJDA has been proud to lead the Dark Sky application process, taken over from a community member in 2023. This was started in 2020, so it's been about 5 to 6 years of going after this program. And this included a full year of lighting surveys at 5 locations around town, often taken during late night drives around town at 10:30 p.m., oftentimes in my pajamas. We've also hosted community events like stargazing nights and informational sessions this year, and drawing strong participation from residents and visitors. We recently worked with the Colorado Main Street program, with the Silverton Main Street program and the state's Main Street architect to help Dara Deli redesign their iconic arrow sign. The goal is to keep it as a functional business feature while making it fully dark sky compliant. And those proposed designs are included in the packet for reference. Over the past several weeks, I've had many conversations with local business owners and residents who are deeply invested in keeping this program strong, however, meeting the needs for our businesses. I've also noticed that some of the language circulating in our community has been misleading and incorrect, so I'd like to clarify a few key points. Our town is not removing or taking away all lighting. The Dark Side program promotes conscious lighting, meaning light that is used thoughtfully and directed where it's needed. This includes lighting that is downturned. So illumination is focused on the ground rather than up into the sky, where it contributes to light pollution. It also means using bulbs with a color temperature below 3000 Kelvin. So when a bulb needs replacing, it's swapped out for a warmer, less intense lighting. In addition, fixtures should be shielded to ensure the light shines downward instead of outward or upward. So essentially, good lighting has no downside. In fact, it can enhance our year-round economy. Astro tourists, who are the tourists that are given that name in this program, are far more likely to stay overnight rather than make day trips. On average, an overnight visitor spends 3 times more than a day-only visitor. What might be a $90 day trip becomes a $380 per night towards lodging and food. And then in 2016, over 5.5 million people visited an International Dark Sky National Park in the state of Utah alone. So this demonstrates the immense tourism potential.
Sorry. Thanks, Sarah. I know it's a really obnoxious timer, but my phone was often on silent, so it was not an effective timer.
I just want to clarify, will Chris and I be able to speak later, or should we do public comment now?
That's a good question. Comments from the board. It's not a public hearing, but it's kind of like an applicant now, right?
We'll be able to provide input whenever it comes.
I would say if the board has questions, I would say provide public comment now, and if the board has questions for you later, I think that would be great.
Okay.
If you're able to stay. Yeah, if you're able to stay.
I brought snacks. I'll be able to stay. Okay. Good evening. My name is Megan Brash, co-owner of Deli at 1124 Green Street. Before we begin, I'd like to ask everyone to take off their code hats for a moment and put on your business owner or even your homeowner hat. Because behind every code and ordinance are mouths to feed. Silverton's values have always been about resilience, creativity, and community. That's why I'm asking for real solutions and potentially an amended code, part of the later discussion. I'll admit I'm guilty of putting the cart before the horse. Sorry, Chris. And maybe that's what we've done with the strict pursuit of Dark Sky certification. I've heard a lot about the potential for astrotourism, but as far as I can tell, we haven't seen measurable benefits or has anyone been tracking event attendance, tax data, or visitor patterns related to Dark Sky? Because if not, we're making decisions based on an idea, not evidence, and small businesses like ours can't afford to be an experiment. There are over 30 other Dark Sky communities, to my understanding, and I would just encourage us to be unique in our own way. People can see the stars at Memorial Park and they can come downtown for light and life. When the Deli is supported, the benefits ripple outwards. I have a little visual, but I'll pass it around. We currently employ one full-time year-round staff member with 2 kids in the school, and we ourselves bring 2 more children to Silverton Public Schools. That's 4 students tied to one small business, roughly $80,000 in school funding. We give back when we can to meaningful town projects such as the Welcome to Silverton sign, the preschool snack program, and Silverton Public Radio. It's local tax revenue, local vitality, and local pride. To be honest, I don't have the money to change any part of this era or to replace it. And it's a Christmas miracle that it even works. Rather than something new or flashy, I'm asking that we reduce, reuse, and recycle to preserve what's already here. The Arrow has survived time, weather, and turnover. Let's do what it was designed to do, guide people to local businesses that keep this town alive. When you pull the plug on lighting, you pull the plug on revenue for so many other things, cue the avalanche reference. So tonight I'm asking for 3 things really. One is a temporary exemption to use the Arrow during business hours only for safety and visibility. Second, to pursue and potentially amend the lighting ordinance so that it reflects Silverton's economic reality and values, allowing reasonable lighting for downtown businesses. And third, to pause potentially the Dark Sky certification effort until we can track real benefits to tourism, revenue, and community well-being. I'm asking to use the Arrow during business hours to keep Main Street safe, visible, and welcoming. Silverton isn't, I don't know if it is or is not an astronomy town. We're a mountain town built on tourism, heart, and hustle. Let's leave with data. Woo, thank you. Yeah, here I am.
Thank you. Thank you. Other public comment?
Good evening, Deanne Gallegos. I'm speaking with the hat for Silverton Area Chamber of Commerce, and I know I had submitted a letter to you guys. In this last 2 weeks, we've had way more conversations with community and business owners, and it really speared off from the Arrow at the Deli. So first, I'd like to address the Deli. It's hard in Silverton, and that has been a very difficult location. And to just have something as switching the light back on of something that's been there since 1960 would be very gentle and easy on this young couple who took a leap of faith in a very difficult economy in Silverton. We have a very short window. I call it the salmon run, right? When we got to catch the most fish that we can. And we have light until 9 o'clock at night and warm weather and opportunity for an abundance of tourism. This conversation then led into the Dark Sky. If you really look at the timeline, it was 2020. We felt overrun. We started to have the conversation about OHVs. It was October 12th of 2021 when OHVs were voted out of our community. So it was an economic development conversation, and it was community spirit by Cole Davenport. Trustee Harper was one of the ones that were the first to spearhead and pursue the Dark Sky community, which is one of OEDIT's fleet of, all the things, Silverton Creative District, Chamber of Commerce, do Silverton right, and then it was San Juan Development, even before Sarah, that took on that initiative, and I actually sit on the board and have submitted countless support letters, as well as supported that work on the board. There are some unfortunate consequences to the downtown community that are whether perceived or real or potential. We have a lot of new businesses, so they're now submitting applications, which is hitting the flag on the new code, right? Which it was written because of dark sky, where we wanted to head as a community. So I just ask that maybe we just take a quick moment to really revisit that and talk about compromise, because in this community, we're always asking for compromise. So still protecting our dark skies in our neighborhoods. I have a pretty abundant telescope. I really hate the street light on the corner. Always want to sniper it out, but I won't do that, especially now that I'm a record. And I would love, more subtle lighting in that area. But when I go downtown, I would also love to see some lightscaping that adds vibrance. And there was some misinformation going around, and some of that probably did come out of the robust conversation we had at the all-member meeting for the chambers on Wednesday. So yes, no, we're not looking to shut the whole town down and be dark, but what is a part of dark sky is that when you're not open for business, you are asked to keep your lights off. And so in the winter time is really where I'm concerned that might come to light, literally, or no light, where you have one guy in November or even January that's taken that Monday and they're alone, solo on the block. And usually neighbors kind of help each other to, oh, thank you.
Thank you. I could start holding up a 30-second, like a wave like this, so it's not so abrupt. All right, additional public comment. We love hearing from all of you, so thanks for joining us. And I know we're going to have some online as well, so.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. I'm here to support granting a variance on the night sky regulations for the deli sign, as well as to challenge the rigorous application of the code to all the businesses in the commercial district, because I think it is detrimental to them. I totally agree with the position of the Historical Society that sign is historic. I remember very fondly being here in the late 80s, going to the drive-in at the time with the sign lit on a cold morning at 5 o'clock in the morning when all the miners were gathered there to get breakfast before they went up to the mine. So it is truly a historic feature, and I'd love to see that again. It's a welcoming feature for the town. I think one thing that Silverton has fought over the decades since the mine is closed is the town is closed for business in the winter. It's dark, there's businesses boarded up. That arrow is the first thing that people see when they come into town. That's the sign's impact on dark sky is minimal. It's an inconsequential sign. It's 3x3 small bulbs. It pales in comparison to the ambient light on Green Street. I strongly support the black sky concept for residential neighborhoods. I can see dark skies from my backyard. I think the 3-block commercial block we have has to have a different application of the code. The brochures are asking for a reasonable, practical exception to light a historic sign only during business hours. Also, I would like to kind of challenge the board on the perceived benefit of dark skies designation. As Megan said, there are 30 other communities, including Durango, Telluride, Rico, and Ophir, that are seeking that designation. It doesn't set Silverton apart as any other town in the region. I think Megan and Chris have invested a lot of time, effort, and energy into this business. And I think that lighting that arrow would greatly support their cause. And I know at the candidate forum, when all the trustees were running for office, the very common thing was supporting small business in town. I know a lot of the business owners in town, and all I hear about are obstacles to the already challenging things they have to be successful here. So I urge the town to support the brochures in their really modest request here. Thank you.
Could you just state your name for the record, Ken?
Ken Ballaway.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Great. Do we have other in-person public comment?
Hello, Christopher Brosh, 1631 Snowden Street and Dara Deli at 1124 Green Street. I want to start by saying thank you all for taking interest in this topic and allowing the space for the discussion. Also, thank you, Lucy and city staff, as well as Sarah and San Juan Development, for your work walking me through this and, looking for solutions within the code. Balance is important. Dara Deli is very much for limiting unnecessary light pollution. At the same time, we feel the current land use code for outdoor lighting and signage, based on the criteria to become a certified dark sky community, as it has been explained to me, is overly limiting and constricting. We've looked for tools within this code to, come up with an exemption for the sign, reaching out to, historic, community and, getting support and looking for any tool that the language would work. Reality is that, I think if we took a common sense approach to it, the arrow is historically significant and less bright than actually other exempt lighting, such as my bistro lights. The arrow is fairly shielded from the sky, bulbs are recessed, thus covered, albeit not shielded on the sides and pointing down. So these are some of the things that kind of trips it up. It seems like there's a little bit of imbalance and a lack of ability to kind of have these common sense approaches to the economic vitality of our community due to the language and the requirements for the certification of the dark sky community. And, I wish there was another way to look for a tool to, make that work. So I think a lot of folks in the community are, kind of ignorant of the land use code until it affects them. I know I am. And a lot of people, try to show up to the public forums and, work in the working sessions to help, give feedback for that. But, rewriting a code's a lot, right? So anyways, speaking on my own ignorance of the code, I started looking at the current Dara Deli space in January of 2025. At this point, all my attention was, in the business, and just really got stoked when we flipped that sign on, and it's like, oh wow, this is amazing. I think that on a dreary or dark time, that really helps pull people down to that block. Our neighbors have cited some pretty positive, effects of us just being there. And I think that would definitely, really be for this. Thank you all.
Welcome additional public comment. Any topic. This is your 3 minutes of topic. Yeah.
I have nothing prepared. I'm just speaking from the heart. My name is Louise Contino, and I help serve on the Silverton Food Security Working Group. And I also work for the Good Food Collective as the La Plata Food Equity Coalition leader. And as many of you know, there's a government shutdown occurring right now. And there's no plan in place and no emergency funding has been released for food security support. Currently, the national government issues over $9 billion a month, 1 month, 9 billion in disbursements across the country. That's $120 million in Colorado alone. And all of those benefits are on hold for next month. SNAP essentially means food stamps. So essentially, our country's missing $9 billion in cash to buy food that will be missing from people's pockets. And I urge us as a community to think about how we can close that gap here in San Juan County. Tomorrow, we're having an emergency meeting with the Food Security Working Group. And if anyone is interested in attending that meeting or bringing their voice as a town trustee or board member, official, or just a concerned citizen, you're welcome. It'll be from 10 to 11 a.m. at the library. Our gap in San Juan County is relatively small. To put it in perspective for you all regionally, In La Plata County, they're looking at a $1 million gap in benefits, and here in La Plata County, it's less than 9,000. It's roughly 8,500, and it will affect 43 individuals that receive benefits in our county. So I just want you all to know that we're working on this. It's a rapidly developing crisis across the country, and it will affect our neighbors here, including our grocery store that receives a significant revenue each month from SNAP beneficiaries. So we're brainstorming, we're coordinating. I just want you all to know this is happening. And if you have any ideas on how we can collectively create mutual aid to address this problem, maybe crowdsource some funding to support SNAP beneficiaries, I welcome your input and suggestions.
Do we have any more in-person public comment? Okay, we'll now turn to Zoom for public comment. Again, if you're on Zoom, please click the raise hand button and we will get to you as we can. And you'll have 2 minutes. Please introduce yourself.
This is Melody. Can you hear me?
We can.
First, I want to say that when we were on the land use committee, the company that was hired to help us felt that we needed to reach the dark sky thing, and they wanted all the lights off at 9 o'clock. We all objected that, of course, we're in business after 9 o'clock and the businesses need to be able to be seen. So that might be where the 9 o'clock thing started. The other thing I want to talk about is the Gorensons. I remember the day the new land use code was adopted that Shane Gorenson said in a meeting that they would be living under different rules, and they are. And I'm not sure why it's so essential to have them live under the rules that they are told now when they were planning and got a loan for something else. So I would really like you to take care and closely look at that and see what can happen there. I personally don't know of anything else that was in place that ended up being so restricted after we changed it. But that's not really what the town's here for, I don't think. But thank you.
Thank you. Again, if you're on Zoom, please bear with us. We're having some technical difficulties with our screen, but keep your hand raised and we will get to you. All right, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Aaron Watson. I'm with Dark Sky, Colorado, and I live in Paonia, Colorado. I just wanted to give a little insight from our experience here in Paonia, because we just became certified as a Dark Sky community last year. And you know, it was a lot similar to what's going on in Silverton. There was some pushback at first. There was even some rumors going around that people weren't going to be allowed to use their headlights in their cars when they came into town. And so obviously that's not true, and that's not what Dark Sky is all about. You know, we're more asking, you know, just to shield the lights and use it responsibly. And specifically when it comes to a sign, I wanted to give an example. Here in town, we have a marquee on our movie theater. And, you know, that's lit up every night for the movies, and it's a big part of our downtown. It was lit up with these spotlights, and they were shining up into the sky. And we worked with the movie theater, and we had a lighting designer come and help design some lights that just pointed down onto the marquee instead of shining up. And the marquee is still really bright. It's still, you know, it's central part of town. People can see it. It's really bright, but the lights are compliant with Dark Sky now. And you know, I don't have hard statistics on the economic data of the tourism we're seeing, but I hear a lot of people are coming to town and hear their experience, and they're coming because we're a dark sky town. They want to see the Milky Way and they want to see the stars, and they're excited to come to Paonia to see that because we have that. And I think it can be a win-win situation for towns like Paonia, for Silverton. You know, we can have the business, we can have the increased tourism, and all it takes is some, you know, thoughtful lighting and how we do the lighting right. We're not trying to make the town darker. We're not trying, you know, we want light where we need it. We want light where it's needed and where it's needed for safety We're just asking, to point it down, do the right color temperature, and be responsible with that light. So yeah, I just wanted to give that, not much has changed in Paonia since we got the certification. Maybe we're seeing some more people come to see the night sky. It's really a benefit. The residents love it. And yeah, just wanted to give that perspective. And I think it can really be a win-win for businesses. You can get the benefit of that international recognition of that dark sky certification and protect your night sky. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great, go ahead.
Hi, this is Heidi with Silverton Lakes RV Park. And I am wanting to kind of just talk about the dark sky designation as well. And I understand and appreciate the goal behind the dark sky designation. Obviously, we all love the night skies, but I don't feel like it might be the right move for Silverton right now, or at least it needs to be handled really carefully. The first one, just the funding. For years, Silverton's been pulling money away from advertising and tourism, the very things that bring people here and keep the community alive. The lodging tax that was meant to promote Silverton has been redirected again and again to childcare, housing, water, sewer, all important causes. But when there's nothing left for tourism, it hurts everyone. I see great marketing from Uray, Ridgeway, Durango, but I almost see nothing from Silverton. We don't promote ourselves, and the dark sky designation won't change that. Without marketing or events tied to it, it can't help local businesses. It only adds restrictions and more costs. I did hear someone say that there were some events and things of that nature, but I didn't see one piece of it. And I'm constantly looking at the marketing and the social media, and so I'm not seeing it. The manpower, the town doesn't have the staff to manage or enforce another program. We already struggle with basic infrastructure, and adding inspections and compliance checks just doesn't seem realistic. Many local businesses just don't trust that the new rules will be enforced fairly. We've seen uneven decisions before, and it certainly makes every ordinance feel like another risk, and we can't afford that now. If the board decides to move forward, I would urge you to use the flexibility that the dark sky program allows. From what I'm reading, you can exclude certain areas, including downtown, from the strictest rules. Blair and Green Street, they need to stay visible, safe, and welcoming. Blair already has rough walkways, limited sidewalks. I mean, so going darker there isn't preserving beauty, it's creating risk. So I would ask that you would provide clear exemptions for safety, signage, and storefront lighting so downtown businesses don't look dark or closed. I know the tavern, every night it sounded like it was closed. Whenever we went downtown, I was like, oh, they're closed because they didn't have the lighting. So without a marketing plan or budget to promote this designation, all it does is regulate and restrict. Silverton business owners already carry so much of the load, this adds more. If the town chooses to move forward, please do it in a way that keeps Silverton safe, visible, and open for business. We all want to protect what Silverton makes it special. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. And again, if you're on Zoom and you're joining us and you'd like to make a public comment, please click the raise hand button and we'll promote you to panelist. Melina, do we have any other public comment on Zoom? Okay, thank you all for participating and attending. We'll close public comment. There is another public comment period at the end of the meeting if you would like. Thank you for coming. We'll close public comment. And I'll remind the trustees that obviously we have a conversation about signage and potentially leading into a dark skies conversation on the agenda. If there are other items that were raised in public comment, the place in the agenda where the board could give any staff direction or respond would be agenda item 10, open discussion of future agenda items. So just a reminder to the board, if you heard anything that you'd like to have a board discussion on or give staff direction on, you can bring that up there. All right, we'll move on to consented, and I'm sure we'll have a robust discussion on our agenda item topic later. We'll move on to the consent agenda, item number 4.
And I just want to point out that there are several contracts in here that were discussed at the finance committee meeting, so we put them in the consent agenda. If you wanted to discuss any of those, I would recommend pulling them and putting them under the discussion item prior to voting on it.
Any comments on the board to pull any of those contracts out?
That's good.
Nope, okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Alverson?
Yes.
Mr. Wakefield?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Judge?
Yes. Yes.
Great, moving on to agenda item 5, staff reports.
All right, well, I've got some good news. Last week, Lucy accepted the 2025 APA Colorado Honor Award in the category of Planning Excellence regarding our land use code. Well deserved. In front of her there. She's also a panelist and worked alongside Clarion talking about our land use code. I think she had about 70 participants for that. So she's recognized the awesome work that she's doing.
Let me pause there for just a minute too. I think what this highlights, and we'll talk about this later too, with all the commentary on the land use code. I mean, something that came out when we were working with Clarion was how engaged our community was, right? Most towns do not have as many different types of community members show up and get engaged on land use code. You know, it might be a couple of developers, maybe some business owners, maybe some different policy experts, but I think what it really shows is the ability for this town to engage and show up. And there's always going to be things in our code. We've seen this over and over. We've had multiple discussions at this board table about things that we can modify and adapt based on feedback from the community. And I know we'll have that discussion later, but I just kind of want to acknowledge both the staff effort behind where we've gotten to thus far with our land use code and the community effort. It is still something that I think we can be proud of as we maintain a culture and an effort to adapt, to modify, to make sure that our land use code stays true to who we are as a community. So well done, Lucy. Great work. And the team, we spent a lot of hours on that land use code.
The other thing I wanted to point out is in our financial statements, I had a little note on my calendar to update you all on refuse. And so I'm giving kind of a verbal update right now because there are some things in the air, but highlighted in the financial statements is our year-to-date savings in the refuse. So last year in September, we had spent about $250,524. And this year we spent significantly less than that, about $52,000 less than that. And that came from not putting out our camper trash as well as the convenience cans we serviced ourselves. Now, we did not mean to do that. Bruin was contracted to do that, but we did that. So that's where you're seeing those savings. This contract with Bruin has been handed around from Bill McDougall to Facilities, Parks and Rec, to myself, to the clerk, and now it finally has a home with John Zarkis. So
lucky you, John.
So honestly, with John overseeing it, we've already seen some accountability and we've got a plan forward with some grants coming up. So there's more to come to this, but I just wanted to highlight that in the financial statements. And then the other thing I wanted to do is check in for a quorum on November 24th. And typically we don't do a second meeting in December. And I just wanted to gauge that with you all as we plan out for those meetings. So wanted to make sure that we had enough people on November 24th.
That's the
anyone that will be absent.
I will be out.
Be on Zoom.
Wait,
You'll be maybe. Maybe. That's what I was worried about because it is right during that Thanksgiving week.
okay, yeah, I do have family visiting, but I can.
So wanted to gauge if we wanted to hold a meeting on the November 24th.
Having a meeting that Monday.
I'm not.
I'm not opposed. Yeah, I do have family visiting from out east.
I think that honors people's time commitment while still giving us time to work on agenda items.
Okay.
My recommendations, if anybody says there's a pressing agenda item for that Monday that must happen, speak now.
And we'll work. That would work at the timing, but I just wanted to make sure you guys had a forum. And then on the 22nd, we typically don't have a meeting. Yeah, on December.
That week.
All right, so we will not have meetings on November 24th or December 22nd. Great. All right, that is all I had on my staff reports.
Everyone.
Unless you had any questions on the staff reports that are in there.
That's it. Great. Okay. You nice award, Lucy. All right, moving on to presentations and proclamations. We have a presentation from the Silverton Creative District, their year-end review, as we have in our contract. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us. And you do not have a 3-minute timer.
Thank you, because I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. If it's an hour, I might start dinging the timer, but
Keep it.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm Lisa Branner. I'm the Executive Director of Silverton Creative District, as I think you all know. Let's go ahead and advance the next slide, please. The big news that we have, which is really cause for celebration, is after 6 years of hard effort, Silverton is now a certified Colorado Creative District. 137 districts in the state of Colorado. As I've mentioned to you all before, this unlocks a lot of possibility and a lot of resources for our community. Right out of the starting gate, there is a one-time $10,000 general operating grant that will be made to the Creative District to support our work. There will also be ongoing opportunities that are only available for creative districts for funding. So we'll be tapping into those. There's technical support, marketing efforts that we'll be able to tap into. We're going to have some highway signage. We're going to have access to economic data about the creative industries. Just lots of great things coming down the pipeline for our community as a result of having this designation. And I think our greatest hope is that this is going to put Silverton on the map as a creative destination and really encourage more tourism to the community while still creating a very vibrant atmosphere for the people who live here. So I'd like to invite everybody. We're having a public celebration this Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Lacey Rose Saloon. Come on out and raise a glass with us because we've been working at this since we were founded in 2019. So it's a huge milestone for the entire community.
what's the timing for that, Lisa?
That is from 5 to 7. So this year, we also have a refreshed mission and vision as a result of a strategic planning process that the Creative District went through. Our mission is to foster a culture of creativity that supports artists and makers, enhances quality of life for the people who live here, and strengthens our local economy. And we envision Silverton as a thriving and vibrant community that is elevated by the arts. Just quickly, I'd like to do a little overview of our programs and the ways that we try to advance this mission in the community. So next slide, please. Probably the most visible and best known efforts are the arts and culture events that we do. So Silverton Summer Sounds, the Arts Festival, our First Friday Art Walks, Mistletoe Market. These things are very visible to the community. They are free, they are family friendly, and this is one of the primary ways that we bring the community together to experience arts and culture here in town. Next slide, please. We also engage in a number of collaborative partnerships, and the idea here is to amplify creative initiatives in the town. So it's not just about what we're doing, it's about what everyone in the community is doing to elevate the arts. So many of you may be familiar with Mountain Film on Tour. This is not a program that we organize. Brendan Getz, actually, who's in the photograph there on the bottom left, is the person who organizes this, but he comes under our nonprofit umbrella for fundraising purposes. We provide all kinds of support and mentorship for him to grow that program. This year, we're going to have 2 nights instead of just one, including a Spanish language playlist. So that's sold out every year he's offered it. It's a huge benefit for our community in the dead of winter when there's really not a whole lot going on culturally. So we're really proud to partner with him on that. Other examples are the Silverton School Pottery Program that we contributed funding and support for in years past. We helped the Art Through the Seasons program get off the ground that San Juan Development Association has been offering the last several years. And what an amazing boon for the community as well to have these vacant storefronts enlivened with public art. And then a recent initiative that we're working on, Lucy is involved in this from the planning department perspective, Sarah from San Juan Development. We're looking to advance a public art framework that's going to bring art, whether that be murals, sculpture, et cetera, to our downtown and really invest in some creative placemaking. So you'll be learning more about that as this gets underway, but just working with community partners in any way we can to advance the arts here in Silverton. Next slide, please. Business development is yet another one of our focus points, and we are looking to empower our entrepreneurial creative folks here in town to bring their own visions to life. So mentorship and coaching. We just formalized a mini grant program this year that allows us to provide seed funding to other creative efforts in the community. We've been doing it informally for years. But by having a formalized program now, we have twice a year guidelines or funding cycles with guidelines. It allows us to be more transparent and help people understand the path to getting that seed funding. We are working on a fiscal sponsorship program. Again, something we've been doing informally for years with Mountain Film, but a great example of how this could boost the entire community. The Silverton Powerhouse Collective has just gotten their own nonprofit status. However, they don't have a track record on the finance side of things. So if we serve as a fiscal sponsor for them, apply for grants on their behalf, we can pass that funding through. We've got the 6-year track record. So we're more likely to be competitive when applying for grants and help that effort get up. The other thing I want to mention too on business development is that this work benefits all the businesses in the community, not just the creative ones. We look to reinvest dollars in by hiring locals, by purchasing locally. We have a local first ethos. And by bringing visitors here, they're staying in the hotels, they're eating and shopping in the community. Those dollars get reinvested and recirculated locally. Next slide, please. Support for creatives. We provide networking opportunities, free membership for anybody who is a creative in Silverton and San Juan County, and a number of platforms to enhance visibility for them. So our Creatives Roundtable is a pure networking opportunity. That membership program, free to artists, allows them to have a listing on our website, boosting visibility. We discount booth fees and other fees for the various programs that we offer for those local creatives. Next slide, please. And finally, destination marketing is another focal point for us. We're looking to encourage tourism with targeted marketing efforts that promote this community as a creative destination. So you may or may not be familiar with our online community event calendar. That's free for any events in San Juan County, not just artistic ones. And we're promoting everything soup to nuts. If you want to know when story time at the library is, check it out. We've got it, as well as the big anchor events in our community. We are marketing regionally from Grand Junction down to Albuquerque, points east and west of here. And we'll be looking to do more of that as we are participating in the state certification program. There is great opportunity to piggyback on marketing efforts with other creative districts in the region. Just surrounding us, we have Durango, Mancos, Ignacio, which it just got inducted as well, Ridgeway and Telluride. So we know people like to come and travel around a region. If we give them a reason to do that in partnership with these other communities, that can really boost visitation here to our community. And then finally, we have a printed artist brochure, which is being distributed not just locally here in town, but also at other visitor centers in neighboring communities. Next slide, please. All right, some 2025 achievements that I want to highlight, of course, state certification. That is a huge milestone, not just for the creative district, but for everybody in the community. And it took a lot of engagement and effort to get us there. I mentioned earlier that we have a 5-year strategic plan that we just completed in March. And we were successful in sustaining all of our core programs this year, which was a bit of a challenge because we had a very difficult funding environment this year.
So really proud of that accomplishment and the fact that we also grew participation in our programs. We are serving now, by our calculation, over 300 people annually. Actually over 1,200 people was our season attendance for Summer Sounds. So as long as the weather cooperates, we do pretty well. We're seeing 350 people turn out for those concerts when the weather is good. Silverton Creates this year grew to 25 vendors and 540 attendees at the Makers Market. We had torrential downpours that day, so the fact that 540 people passed through those gates is miraculous. And that's up from last year. And we also had 30 different crowdsourced events throughout the community as that went on. I mentioned the mini grant program. We welcome 2 new board members this year. Evan Harris and Holly Hubner have joined our board. And we do have some transition and some change happening with several board members stepping down now that their terms are up. But we have some renewed energy and vitality with some new board members. And I'm hoping that we're going to actually be in a break-even position at year end. I'm optimistic. It's looking pretty good, especially with that certification grant coming our way. Next slide, please. 2025 financial snapshot based on our budget for this year. We're estimating 70% of our funding is going directly to serving the community through our programs, about 15% to fundraising, and the same to administration. And when we look at revenue by category, again, this is our projection for the year. And once the dust settles at the end of the year, we'll have a true picture here. But the number one source of revenue that we're projecting in 2025 is from businesses. Our community is extremely generous. And I often joke that we raise the dollars penny by penny because it's $250 from this business and $500 from that. But our business community comes out in a big way to support the Creative District. 32% is projected to come from foundations. This will likely be higher this year because we've been pushing very hard on grants and having a great amount of success. Earned revenue, 14%. This is primarily concessions, merchandise sales. We charge nominal fees for vendors to participate in our events. That is where that money comes from. This is an area for growth, maybe ticketed events in the future. 13% this year from government, that is state funding, as well as tourism fund monies. Do get monies from the San Juan County Tourism Board to market the community. And then 8% from individuals, which again, an area for growth and a place that we can do better. So I want to emphasize that last year our government funding was 44% of this pie. So we have really been working hard to diversify our revenue streams. And we're looking at a total budget of about $95,000 this year. So next slide, please. A few notes about our 5-year strategic plan. This was finalized in March after a multi-year process. We host annual community open houses every year where we invite the community to come in and tell us what it is they want to see. What work do they want the Creative District to do? And that's what laid the foundation for this strategic plan. And our goal here was to create a shared community vision for the future of the arts here in Silverton. It is aligned with the Compass Master Plan. You can see some of the visionary ideas that we have. We want the arts community to be unified and all rowing in the same direction, with the Creative District serving as an umbrella organization for that. We aim to see the arts actually driving significant economic activity here in our community, and quantifying that is going to be one of our big challenges coming up. And then overall, we want to see Silverton as a vibrant community elevated by the arts. The 3 goals that came out of that process, and I'll emphasize there are short, mid, and long-term strategies associated with each of these, and there's a lot more detail on our website, so go check it out. It's a lengthy document. But we're looking to build organizational capacity and sustain this organization for the long term. We can't do this work if we are not solid ourselves. We can't support other creative endeavors in the community. So that's got to be number 1. Number two is creating programming that is responsive to community needs. We exist to serve the community. So we actually have a survey out now asking the community for feedback on what they like to see. And that will give us our marching orders for what we do and what we prioritize going forward. And lastly, cultivating partnerships and alliances. We have one part-time staff person and a 7-member volunteer board of directors. So our capacity is obviously limited. We're probably at capacity or above it in terms of the programming that we're offering. So the biggest way that we identified to keep elevating and amplifying the arts here in this community is by partnering with other entities. So that is a big piece of the puzzle for us going forward. Next slide, please. I do want to call out just a few of the many ideas that came out of the strategic plan that are kind of on our short list. Deepening those community collaborations obviously is one. And then also the regional partnerships. Now that we are part of this network of creative districts, there's a lot of potential there. We will be looking to streamline and refine some of our program offerings. Again, looking at the long-term stability and sustainability of the organization, this is going to be necessary. Just making sure that programs are sustainable from both a funding standpoint as well as the human resources standpoint. Some new program ideas that are in the pipeline include a business of art professional development program for emerging artists and entrepreneurs in our community. We're looking, as I mentioned earlier, to develop a public art framework for placemaking and in collaboration with a number of different community partners. And then also looking to outreach and collaborate with our Spanish-speaking community to make sure that there's programming reflective of their cultural traditions. We are, of course, looking to diversify funding streams and explore more earned income opportunities. And then lastly, because change is inevitable and turnover is inevitable, just really working on a succession plan and board development so that we keep clicking right along in spite of whatever changes may come down the road. Next slide, please. I have a quick handout that I am going to pass out. Just underscoring the importance of the arts economically in our community. And I don't have enough copies for everybody, so I apologize. Maybe you guys can share. But the reason why this is so important for our community, this is data from Americans for the Arts, and we'll have access to a lot more data like this as a result of our certification. But arts and cultural economic activity accounts for more than $760 billion nationally each year. 2/3 of all tourism in the United States, 68%, is driven by cultural heritage and history, of which Silverton has an abundance. 35.3 million people specifically choose a destination because of arts, culture, or heritage events or activities. Cultural tourists spend more money, 60% more than other tourists, according to Americans for the Arts. And creativity can increase community revenue by up to 105%. So pretty compelling argument, if you ask me, for why this is important and how it can really grow and sustain our community. And in addition, obviously, to attracting people that support the economy, what we're largely here to do is make this a more livable place for the people who reside here. So kind of that dual purpose goal. So next slide, we're there already. I will end with a note of gratitude. I want to thank the town for your continued support and collaboration. The work that we do would not be possible without the town. The in-kind storage space, the people power, all of this is crucial for our ability to produce these events and do the things that we are doing. And I want to give a particular shout out to the Parks and Rec crew, because they're the boots on the ground that, you know, help mobilize for these events. We install 50 barricades in a morning, trust me, those guys do it with smiles on their faces. They're a vital part of our team, as is the town. So I just would really like to thank you for that partnership and ask for your continued support going forward, because we can't do it without you. And I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thanks, Lisa. I just think acknowledging the milestone of that significant achievement is great. It takes a lot of effort. Sometimes it's like pushing a boulder uphill with a variety of setbacks and changes and COVID. So thank you and to the board and previous board members just for the perseverance in that effort. So
It's been a community effort. It's, yeah, a lot of people have contributed along the way.
questions from the board, comments?
No question, just to echo what Dana said, thank you so much for all your hard work to become a designated creative district in the state. It's been a long time coming, and the creative district is such an asset to our community. And I'm so excited to see what's to come.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Thursday.
Great, thank you. And community calendar would show that Coffee with the Mayor is happening tomorrow. So again, it's not just, it's on there. It's not just arts related. So check out the calendar. Put a little plug in there for that. All right, moving on to agenda item 8. We don't have agenda item 7, business items. So moving on to agenda item 8, discussion direction. 8A is 1124 Green Street light fixture discussion. And there's a memo in the packet for staff, and I know we'll have a lively discussion.
Okay, thank you. So the board requested a memo explaining how the outdoor lighting code applies to the arrow sign at 1124 Green, which I think is always helpful to have a case study to understand how the code's being applied, since you all don't always get to see that. So happy to do that. But before we get into the details, I want to note that this is a very specific and unique situation. So if the board would like more general discussion on the outdoor lighting code, such as how it applies to new lighting or typical on-building upgrades, we could do a future discussion where we invite dark sky representatives, talk to more business owners in the chamber, bring in San Juan Development Association, and just have more general information for you. But for now, I will provide some background. So we heard a little bit of it during public comment, but the Dark Sky Initiative began in 2020 as a citizen-led initiative. In 2022, the board passed Resolution 2022-13, supporting the initiative and committing to pursue the International Dark Sky Community Designation. In 2023, SJDA received a mentorship program with Dark Sky Colorado through OEDIT. And then in 2024, the town adopted the current outdoor lighting code written to meet Dark Sky International standards. So to qualify as a dark sky community, our code requires that all outdoor lighting must be fully shielded, directing illumination within the property boundary, have color temperature under 3000 kelvins, which basically just means kind of a soft or warm indoor light. And then stay within the lumen limits for the property. To support a gradual transition, the code gives 10 years for private lighting to comply. And 10 years is about the average lifespan of an LED light. So the intent is for compliance to happen as lights are naturally replaced. And to ensure compliance for new projects. So this is when the code includes a number of triggers for compliance. And those triggers are new business license, site plan applications, historic overlay district reviews, and really generally most planning applications so that new projects are compliant. This specific case came up when Dara Deli pulled a business license, which required an outdoor lighting plan. They expressed interest in lighting the arrow sign located on the sidewalk adjacent to the building. And after reviewing the outdoor lighting code and the sign code, I found that the arrow sign is not compliant and could not be illuminated under the current standards. I informed the owners that there is no flexibility in the code to allow me to approve the illumination of the sign. So I will walk you through those code sections briefly. So first, definition. The arrow meets the definition of a sign since it's intended to direct attention or to advertise to a business. However, it does not meet the standards for a sign, which require that signs be located on private property. The sign does not meet the outdoor lighting requirements because it is not shielded, and the light fixture and the light spill are not located on private property. And then further, the outdoor lighting code includes outdoor lighting sign standards. And to be compliant with those, signs must be internally lit, or if they're externally lit, they have to meet the general outdoor lighting standards. And then the non-conforming status. So while Dara Deli's business permit is what triggered compliance, the arrow fixture itself is non-conforming, and does not qualify to remain illuminated because it was not in active use when the business was vacant. So after, we looked through this and after the business owners contacted the town again, expressing their wishes to light the sign, Sarah Moore from SJDA and I reached out to our Dark Sky Colorado mentors, Dark Sky representatives, other Dark Sky communities, including Paonia Ridgeway, as well as the Colorado Main Streets representative. And they provided some recommendations on how to retrofit the arrow to meet the dark sky standards. And those are included in your packet, and happy to talk about that more if you would like me to. So yeah, that is kind of an overview of how we analyzed the arrow with the code. I'm happy to answer any questions or have some discussion on that.
Thanks, Lucy. I think that was really helpful to set the stage. So kind of a couple things I'd offer the board as we have this conversation. First stepping back, like why do we have sign codes, right? Like why does it matter that we have code that says what you can and can't do with signage in town? And I think we can all envision a world in which there's some big, huge Las Vegas Disneyland sign outside of a building. And if we had no code, the town would not have a lot of legal ways to say, oh, no, we really don't like that. That can't happen here. That doesn't fit our culture. It doesn't fit requirements. It doesn't fit safety standards, whatever reason, right? So there's lots of reasons why we might have code that specifies what type of signage can happen in town. And so I think we have a couple things here that it would be useful for the board to think about is sort of like the intentions of our code around signage and businesses, historic precedent, and then I think also we have the dark sky piece, right? And whatever information or misinformation has been discussed about the dark sky piece, I think it's important to kind of step back and say, okay, that originally came from a community-driven initiative and staff was directed to pursue it, right? It was a priority kind of set by a previous board. And it's very reasonable for this board and future boards when we come up with instances where we say, well, wait a minute, we have this priority that we think we want to do this thing. And now there's this instance in front of us where the application of that priority or the application of that code or law doesn't quite fit our intention. And so I think it's kind of on the board to reflect and say, okay, what is our intention going forward? How should we navigate that? And how do we help set priorities for both the staff and the community and balance some of those tensions? So we have a couple things going on here, which is why I think, Lucy, it was helpful for you to say this is a more nuanced case. But I think what's helpful about a nuanced case is it allows us to have the discussion around kind of like, what do we continue to want to be when we grow up? And what do we want to look like? So those are some things I would offer the board as we have this discussion. And just a reminder to the community is that staff is given the charge to implement the code, implement the law, right? I think I personally don't want to have a town hall where staff is looking at, well, what is the letter of the law? And do I like this code or not? And do I want to implement it? We've really set up town hall right now where we've given staff the directive to implement the code as it stands. And now it's on the board to decide, well, wait a minute, based on community feedback, based on priorities, does this code still make sense? And we've done that with other instances in our code. But just a reminder to the community that when you're interacting with staff on these different kinds of things that come up, it really is on the staff to implement the code as it stands. And then it's on the community to bring concerns, challenges, issues to the board. And then it's on the board to kind of make determinations from there. So a couple guiding thoughts as we have this discussion. Thank you, Lucy, for the memo.
Lucy, did you present these solutions to retrofit the lights to the Dara Deli, and just how was that process?
Yeah. Yep. I got a chance to meet with the Broshes last week, and we reviewed this memo and we reviewed the retrofit options. And if you would like to ask them their thoughts on it, they shared with me at the meeting that they that they don't want to move forward with the retrofit options, as it's not their first choice.
Gotcha.
Well, and again, depending on the board's suggestion, if you have, again, this isn't an application, so it's not a public hearing with an applicant, but I would offer that if you have questions, because this is such a nuanced case.
Just for like what we're talking about right now, I think what I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around is like this case specifically. But then we're also like, but we want to talk about the broader code later, which feels like they're kind of relevant. So I'm having a bit of a hard time. Like, how much are we talking about a broader conversation right now?
So what I would offer to the board, and curious your guys' feedback, is a couple of things. The way we could proceed today is to say, hey, we could give some staff direction. So if the board is having a discussion that says, hey, we have a couple things related to dark sky designation that we need to know more about, then we could give staff direction of like, we want you to research these things because people have brought up implications and we have questions on them. So we could give staff, we have a couple of options, right? We could give staff direction to come back to us with some more information related to the dark skies designation. So that could look like a work session. That could look like a presentation from Dark Skies International. It could look like a variety of things. If we're talking about if we're trying to open up the box of saying, let's talk about dark sky designation again, then we could direct staff to do that. I think we also have this instance in front of us where if it's the intention of the board, maybe the question is, well, do we have leeway for some sort of exception for both this sign to exist as non-conforming and be lit as non-conforming, right? And so it's kind of up to the board on what is your desired intention to therefore lead what's your solution that you're looking for. With this instance in particular, and then I think with the discussion in general. And so I would ask the board, first off, let's take kind of the sign code. Do we think, the Ghirardelli sign aside, do we think our current sign code, not the lighting, but the sign code, has components that we would like to revisit? Size, location, etc. And if so, then that'd be a first step that we'd ask staff to review. And maybe staff, is there any feedback from you I know the board wants to look at the code in the future. Are there other instances related to the sign code language in particular that you feel like are worth just?
Because lighting aside, the sign itself is not compliant.
Right, right. So first off, do we think our generic sign code needs to be revisited irrespective of this sign?
Well, are there other businesses that have reached out about the sign code since the new update?
Bevan reviews signs, not me. But I've not heard of any comments unless you have.
Unfortunately, he's out sick today, so.
Okay. That's all right. Then potentially the way the board could proceed is to say, hey, when we do our code update, just put a little pin in there and be like, has there been any other conversation about other signs? And we want to know about it. So that's the first piece, just signs generically. Then I would say, is the board interested in finding a way to allow this non-conforming sign?
Yes, I would like to see that.
I mean, I'm okay with the sign, not take away the lighting, but just the sign.
Right, and
We're not-
no
we're
one's
not
talking about tearing the sign down, right? Like, the sign exists, it's non-conforming, it's been on the sidewalk for 50 plus years.
Yes, I'd like to, it's a historic
Yeah.
fact, so I'd like to keep the sign itself.
Yeah, so no one's saying that the sign needs to be torn down. So then we move on to the question of lighting the sign, using it as an actual sign and having it lit. And so then there's really kind of, so then I guess I'd open that up to the board. There's kind of a couple ways here. Is this sign a test case that says, our pursuit of dark skies designation is opening up questions for us that we'd like to reconsider? Or, no, we're still really good with dark skies, we just want to find a way to light the sign. Or maybe it's both.
I think I'm on that side. We've been working on dark sky for about 5 years now. It'll help eliminate some air pollution and also the lights going down on the streets for public health and safety. It could actually help you walk down the street more to see where you are going. I'm a big supporter of dark sky community. I think there's two great options here to light the sign.
to be compliant with dark sky. And that's, yeah, my opinion.
I tend to agree with Amy, like I think dark sky is something we should continue to pursue. I think then my request is for staff to think about, like, in that flexibility, are there actually what are the substantive comments from other businesses who have come out around dark skies? Because I've heard a few comments of like, other businesses have said things, but I don't know what they are, so it's hard to say like what the change could be. But then also like, and I literally just thought of this during the public comment of like, what if the exemption was going into the 10-year, like, to comply, of like, is there in between a all or nothing of like, this sign is permanent forever, or is there like a on-ramp that we could help people get onto? So I think there's just more questions, yeah.
Well, yeah, and it just, and this is a question, if we have to allow the sign to be illuminated as it is, are we gonna be able to get our dark sky designation in the end? So should we still go towards something if this is gonna disallow it anyway?
Right.
And
I
I don't wanna do that.
Yeah, what's our intention? That's what I would ask the board is, what is our intention? What do we want to see? And again, when I thought about this a bit, I think back to when we had a dispensary come to town, right? And it was proposing quite an interesting sign that I think if you surveyed most people in town, they would have said that does not fit the character of our community. That doesn't fit. And it was disallowed in a variety of ways because of our sign code. But if you were to survey many people in the community today, as we've heard, unless there's some big dissenters that haven't showed up today, but there's a general sense that, but no, we like this sign. It fits our culture. We like it. And so it's kind of like, what is the board's intention with both our lighting and our sign code? And the tricky part for boards and code is it's hard to split that nuance. It's hard to say, hey, new business with this really tacky sign, we want to disallow you and have code that allows us to disallow you, but we want to preserve this historical sign. And I would argue that there's a couple of ways that the board could look at this sign. I appreciate that in the staff memo, the assumption is that it has not been used. I think the board could potentially argue, based on some feedback we've gotten, that there has been some level of use. And so we could argue that it's a non-conforming sign that has been in use and it could have a period of time to comply. That is potentially one option. But a question I keep having is.
That came from the attorney, that it was non-conforming.
Non-conforming, yeah. But non-conforming and not in use, because sometimes it can be, if it's in use and non-conforming.
Yeah, we can have Clayton chime in on that if you're around, but yes, the use is non-conforming because the business was vacant.
Gotcha. So Clayton, even if the light had been turned on at different points while the business was vacant, we still don't have an ability in our code to make an exemption that the light was in use.
The board can make any exemption it wants. You could exempt the sign from the code completely for whatever reason reasonably stated exemption that you want. The legal analysis of whether or not the sign was in use under the code is non-use in my opinion, just because intermittently putting on a sign in a vacant building to show that it works really has nothing to do with the purpose of the use of the sign, which is to advertise the business. And so it's impossible if use is derived from its intended purpose, which is to advertise an open business, and the business was not open, then I think it's pretty shaky ground to say that it was in use. I think the board can decide that even though it wasn't in use, you were going to grant it same status. But I don't think you need to say that it was in use. You can just say it wasn't in use, but we don't care. We like the sign. It's historical. There's other lights that are already grandfathered in. It's not gonna hurt the town's progression towards dark sky, whatever the case may be, and give them the exemption anyway. As the board, you guys can make that decision.
Great. Thanks, Clayton. So I think we have options. I think what I would encourage the board to do is if we have questions related to the dark sky designation and the future implications, over the graduated period of time or what it looks like for the downtown corridor, et cetera, then it probably makes sense to have like a work session or a little bit more in-depth discussion about those implications for questions we have.
And that would be before making a decision on this sign, right? Because I
I
feel
think
like
you could do either.
I think if we want a work session, we should have that before we make a decision then, if that's what the board wants.
But you also have signs in town that would likely be affected after 10 years potentially, or lighting in town that would be affected after 10 years. And so we kind of have 10 years to make that determination. The board could say today, flick on the light switch and let's have a dark sky conversation this week.
I feel like helping find some clarity on this specific issue is more pressing. The dark sky conversation at this point. My feeling is that there's a really good option that's been presented here, and I'm curious if y'all are interested to hear from the owners why that option wasn't palatable to them. That's what I would like to hear.
The retrofitting, sure. Board members, or did anybody, Jim, did you want to make a other comment before we ask the process to come up?
I think both issues are connected, 100% connected. Clayton just said that there were lights, signs, and lighted areas that were grandfathered in. That was a part of the original conversation, and now apparently that has gone away. I think we need more clarification, and I think we need a real compromise on this. Because what I'm seeing is good intentions. I'm a part of that. I was a part of the original discussion and I really pushed this. And what I'm seeing is good intentions and unfortunate consequences that are affecting businesses, not just the deli, but obviously you guys you brought this issue to the forefront and are kind of the example right now. I see a town that is asking a lot from our businesses. And now we're telling businesses, we need you to dim your lighting. We need you to turn off lights at different times, essentially cutting people off at the knees. And that is not what we should be doing. This is a much bigger issue. This is a much bigger, I think there's a much bigger solution to be had, and I want to see compromise on this from all sides. I do not see any reason why that sign should not be illuminated. I don't see any reason. I don't think you can tell someone that because the business was vacant, the building was vacant, and the building, it was for sale. So there's no real reason to turn on the sign that it now all of a sudden doesn't comply, or it's not eligible for conversation. I don't think that's correct. I think there are other places in town that have historic lighting, and for that to sit there and say, oh, that doesn't comply anymore, I don't think that's correct either. We need, as a board, as a community, to reinvest in the producers of this community. And we need to do it in a positive nature, and we need to support them full-heartedly.
Thanks, Jim. I've heard Megan and Chris, you guys want to come up and just clarify about the option presented in the memo as kind of this like alternative, and some of your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. First and foremost, as I mentioned before, I think I would point to common sense that it's not bright, it's less bright than other lighting that is exempt, such as the beach trail lights. The lights are already very low lumens, very low Kelvin, and not pointing up at the sky. Now, granted, within all of that, there are nuances that say that can't work. As far as the proposed adjustments or alterations, that all comes with cost. That also changes the look of the sign and the historic nature of it. I mean, it would look odd to not have the bulbs in there and to have the solutions presented put in there. Also, the example of the marquee in Paonia, I would argue, does not look as good. So I just, I see that and I see that, yeah, it's an adjustment, but it's really taking away from the character of the sign. And then lastly, I would say that There's other signage that's very similar that's, you know, been built very, you know, much more recently relative to how old our sign is, that will probably be exempt due to some nuance in the code and in the reality of dark sky. It's brighter, much, much brighter. And so it's like, I guess I think that the way, I mean, I guess I'm getting at that. I think that the way the strictness of Dark Sky International has worded everything doesn't quite make sense in this particular instance. And I understand it's very, very nuanced. But it just seems like to me that that's not a compromise. It's only me or us, you know, kind of giving in to spend more money to change a sign that takes away from the character. So those would be the, you know, three main reasons I'm opposed to acquiescing to use the sign with all of the proposed amendments.
I don't know if this matters or not, but I did reach out to the National Historic Society, but government shutdown. Oof. But I did hear from History Colorado, and they reviewed the arrow and determined that it's not eligible for the National Register of Historic Places due to loss of associated resources per National Park Service criteria. However, it is eligible for the State Register of Historic Properties or could qualify as a local landmark. History Colorado expressed support for a local ordinance update that would recognize historic resources outside the National Register. I think this gives clear authority and preservation credibility to protect the arrow as a historic local asset. Yeah.
Thanks. Other questions from the board?
What time of the night do you think you'd shut that light off?
Whatever our business hours are would be my intention, but I'd be, the latest we've ever been open is 10 PM. So, I would also agree to a reasonable, you know, shut off time. I think 10 is that. I mean, if we say we stayed open, I mean, I could, you know, promise to have it off by 10. But I think, you know, that's about when most businesses are pretty wrapped up anyways. And, you know, just would be beyond the time at which is really effective to pull people down that way. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of my biggest questions that I haven't heard much about is just the business hours, you know, which currently, you know, there's not a whole lot of breakfast game in town. So that's sort of where we're driving is 6 AM, which right now is dark. So 6 AM to 3 PM. And then, yeah, just 2 days a week. Currently, we're doing a dinner service from 5 to 9.
But we would come next summer, we'll probably expand those hours again, you know, the ebb and flow of our seasonality here.
Other questions for the Brushes? Yeah. Thanks, guys. Stay tuned.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I heard like some things that need clarity. One, that turning off all the lights. But from what I understand, this is why I think we need to do a session on it, is like places who were in operation before the new plan use code, they have 10 years to comply. And then in those 10 years, they need to over that 10 years, they will need to comply with the new dark sky lighting. So businesses will have to eventually transition over 10 years, right? So it's not turning off right now. So I think that's the scary tactic being used of like, for us. This just doesn't seem like. So then I'm wondering, well, what other businesses are being impacted like the Brushes?
You mean immediately or over 10 years?
No, immediately. So it's like this feels urgent and scary, but besides, I mean, I just don't know like what other businesses have come forward and how that urgency. Well, so it sounds like we have a couple questions. I'd like to ask the board, what other questions do you have? Implications of becoming a dark sky community. Businesses, and or if you have questions about it for residential or other implications.
in the immediate term.
And can we hold on just 1 second? Thank you.
Thank you, Melina. Thanks, Gloria. A question that I have is what also are the implications over 10 years? Because I think we haven't quite, I was on the board with Jim, Tyler, we were here, it all sounded good. We had community members show up and say, this is what we want to do. We're excited about this. And I don't think we have had a thorough conversation about, well, what are the implications over 10 years, especially for our business district? Again, it goes back to like, what are the intentions in the community? And it might vary depending on what you're talking about. If you surveyed folks and said, well, do you want to be dark sky compliant in the residential area? A lot of people might say, yeah, let's be slightly darker in the residential area, or let's enforce these over time that we don't have a big floodlight that's pointing all over. Well, what do you think about dark sky implications in the business area? It sounds like there's a variety of misinformation going around that we don't really know. And a question I would have is looking at specifics. There's only a handful of lit signs in town, and there's only a handful of outdoor lighting in our business district in town. To everybody's point, it already feels a little bit dark. And so I would be curious to know in a work session, okay, if we look at the marquee lighting at the Grant, if we look at the Wyman sign, if we look at the Avon sign, I mean, again, I don't.
Teller House.
The Teller House sign. Look at the business district signage we have and outdoor lighting we have. I would want to know what are the effects in 10 years, because I personally still think that conversation matters. Because I think it's worthwhile as a community having a conversation of saying, well, in 10 years, how many of those would be affected? And do we want those to be affected or not? We should decide that before we keep spending staff time and resources going down a path.
Yeah, and if we do want to exempt historic signs, which if that's what the community wants, I would support that. But if that then makes it so we can't get that designation, then I'm not sure, but working towards something sort of halfway, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't.
But I think that comes to the flexibility of the designation in its true purpose.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Within the dark sky initiative, there are areas, if I'm not mistaken, that there is flexibility to work with. We have areas that we can actually designate that don't affect the business corridor and the businesses directly within, what, a 4-block radius? Not even that. And I think these are the compromising options that we need to explore. Because I know when we first discussed this, when it was first brought to us and we were all gung-ho about it, and I still am. I think this is great. We discussed, just as Clayton just mentioned, grandfathered in lighting. Now, all of a sudden, that is not on the table anymore. Further, the language is that when your business is closed for the day, that your lighting turns off. We have enough. We don't have enough light to illuminate the street right now. We look like we're closed from the highway. And I think it is a great injustice for the town of Silverton to be compared to Paonia, who is close to a major artery, who has double, if not triple, the population, and that they're not inflicted with the same things we have. I think we should be assisting and removing some of the barricades when it comes to small business. And as much as I was for this in the very, very beginning, I'm still for it today. I think there are ways to work with the Dark Sky Initiative that do not impact and affect our very, very small, limited business corridor.
And we don't have to posit it like, well, it was the dark sky people that originally came to us and now it's pitted against our business owners that want X. I think that doesn't serve any of us very well at all. We're too small to do that. And so I would encourage us to find what is our intention? This is why I keep going back to it. what's our intention with the dark sky designation, what's our intention with our sign code, and what's our intention with our businesses.
We want to promote businesses, but then again, we really don't. With all the codes and all the rules that we've come up with, we make it very difficult for people. We meet, what, 2 more weeks? Turn the sign on for 2 weeks, we'll discuss it then. Whether we like it, whether it fits in, whether we get too many complaints, or whatever. We don't even know what it looks like lit.
Lucy, did you have something on like the 2 different types of way to do dark sky? I thought you.
Or Sarah, if you have insight to add here as well, or maybe it's just better kick to a work session.
Yeah, I think that we should have a work session. I think there's a lot. Yeah, I think we need to discuss, what it looks like to be the dark sky community. And, talk about if we want to do that. I think that's really important. But I did just want to clarify 2 things. One is that there are exemptions in this code, and there are exemptions for lighting that is associated with the structure that's on the National Register, and that lighting is contributing. So when we're talking about like the Wyman, for example, like that sign would be considered exempt. And also, again, this is a very specific situation where we're talking about a sign that's on public property that's not shielded. The dark sky regs, they still allow businesses to have outdoor lighting. They're required to be shielded. And so I just wanted to clarify that too.
But it sounds like that the trustees want to keep the sign, first of all, even though it is non-conforming, so we can go on that direction, right? Yep. Is that, yes, we're keeping the sign. The second one is if it's illuminated or not. And if we need more information on dark sky information before you make that decision, we're happy to put together a session for that and invite experts to talk through that with you all.
Well, I'd like to offer something additional. So, I think I wear the public policy hat and I wear the common sense community member hat, right? From a public policy hat, I totally get why we've gotten to this point, right? Because again, we task staff to interpret the code that we've given them, and we don't give them the leeway to say, well, but I really like your arrow and it's in the middle of the sidewalk, but it doesn't conform, but I really think we should turn it on. We're just not gonna say anything about it. We instruct staff to say no, when things like that come up, it comes to the board. So this feels really good from the public policy perspective, even though it's super annoying for community members to go through this process. I would really like to advocate that if Clayton says we can do it, we keep the sign and we turn it on. And then whenever we think it's appropriate with staff time, we have a work session that says, okay, what makes the most sense for Silverton? And I think that we can find compromise and agreement for what the community's intention is around, we want to be a destination. Most of us here love our skies. We love seeing the beautiful Milky Way, and we value that as a natural resource. And we value the economy that we have. And so I would love a work session where we can look at some of the nuance of our seasonality in our businesses, the nuance of neighborhoods, the nuance of historic places, because I don't think we should make one building have to go through getting on the historic register to turn on their arrow. That's my personal preference, because I think that's like government getting in the way of local common sense. And if the board has the leeway to say, really, our long-term intention is for you to be able to turn on the sign, I don't think we should make the Brushes go through the effort to become a certified local government to be able to, or certified property to turn on the sign. If at the end of the day, the board just wants to say, turn on the sign.
Yeah, I'm still in favor of dark sky community and downtown. I am wondering, one, if we hold off on the sign until we have the work session, or is there some leeway where there's a certain timeline to get those signs conforming to dark sky?
I think we should figure out how we can help them get this sign illuminated, but do it in a way that preserves that work session really being open-ended and having options for us. I totally agree with Tyler. We don't want to set ourselves up in a position where we've made some decision that's difficult to reverse. But I'm hearing consensus, and I personally certainly feel like we should provide for some way they can get that sign lit. And I do think that's time sensitive for their business.
I would agree. I would like to see the light turned on.
I think that's what I was suggesting, was like, why don't, I mean, the land use code passed in 2025. They opened their business in 2025, like adding them into the grandfathering clause of 10 years for compliance. As for right now, until we figure out.
In 10 years, the type of light bulbs we're using are probably going to change considerably.
Right. So, question for Clayton. So Clayton, or question, I think the question that I hear from the board is like, there's an intention that we'd like to have the sign lit. And there's an intention that we don't want lighting the sign to forever or right now exclude us from pursuing dark sky designation, if that's what the board comes to continue to support. So I guess a question for Sarah or Lucy. Yeah.
I'd like to hear what Sarah has to say.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I think what Lucy or Lindsay mentioned, if you let Ghirardelli light their sign, we do have 3 other businesses that became businesses like around the same time. So I think you need to think about them too. So Alpine Tavern, Barbecue Spot, and even Rendezvous. Rendezvous has 1 light on their sign right now and it's pitch dark. So I think, and from what I've heard, they did buy lighting that wasn't compliant and they were told they could not put that up. They didn't pass that through Lucy, but they used our code enforcer as a resource and they weren't allowed to do that. So if you do let Ghirardelli light their sign, I think you do need to think about our other businesses that have been told no and support them too. And of course, the dark sky designation is super difficult, but I do think common ground and finding a solution, meeting in the middle is a common discussion throughout all of us. We all live here for a reason. I think it'd be awesome to find a middle ground to support our businesses, but also make sure that designation is met or even slightly, we got to work with them on that, but at least preserving our night sky so our residents can enjoy it too. So, yeah.
It seems like there can be a level of reasonableness and common sense that we can implement. We have more public comment being presented. How does the board feel about raising public comment for this? Kind of as if it's a public hearing, but it's not a public hearing. Thoughts, interest, or are we ready to also make determination and move on?
Yeah. Well, are we trying to make a decision tonight? I think is the question. Like, what are we?
I like to encourage the board, unless you need more information, to make a decision that it's on the agenda, because I think it's good use of community time and board time. But if there's more information that anybody needs that decision, then that's what we should talk about.
I feel that we have good grounds to separate this decision from potential impacts to other businesses because of the historic nature. I feel that that is very aligned with our priorities as a community. And I say that as somebody who's a huge proponent of the Dark Sky Initiative. I think that this is great for our community for a number of reasons. And I also think that a little bit of wiggle room around the edges is not going to impact that goal too much, and it's going to provide a big impact on our business community. That's my personal feeling. And I think that the difference of things that have been in our community for a long time are kind of part of the historic fabric. I think that's different from a sign that was constructed this year.
It raises a question of like, are we doing a good enough job in our business application process through the chamber, through San Juan Development Association, to just make sure that as new businesses are onboarded and maybe they do make an investment in something new, that like there are what we've heard and what I seem to understand is that there are components to dark sky compliance that are not hard. They're not hard bars, right? If you have a sign on Main Street, you can point it down. We have the arrow as a unique example because it's such a unique non-conforming example. But when we're talking about additional signage, finding ways, and maybe there's a way with San Juan development funding or ways we can support economic development to say, hey, let's retrofit your guys' signs so that we have an intention of having Main Street lit up. Like at least people's business signs should be lit up and you should be able to know. I agree with Alpine Taverns. Like I couldn't even tell what the sign says because it's so dark. And so how do we strike that balance of we want our businesses to be able to have their signs lit up, And we also want new signs to comply with what our previous intention was around dark sky. So let's take these a couple at a time. Clayton, are there options for us to have a variance for this arrow in particular as it relates to our signage code and our outdoor lighting code?
Yes.
Yes. Is it the board's intention? Do we want to see that sign lit up tomorrow?
With the time of closing at 9 o'clock.
I think it would
That's
make,
when the light goes off.
Thought they close at 10.
Well, they can close at 10, but the light goes off at 9.
I think if we make a variance for this, we'll have to make a variance for various other businesses. So I'd be inclined to have one of the options presented for their sign. The light up dark sky compliant.
Okay. Ron's advocating for lighting it up 9 p.m. I mean, we could take a vote on this.
I'd say turn it on. Let's take a vote. Turn it on.
But I mean, I would advocate for it just putting into the grandfathering clause of like within 10 years.
Yeah, I would do that also. That way it's equal with everybody else right now.
Mhm.
And it's not a permanent exemption. If all the other businesses end up having, all the historic ones that are grandfathered end up having to do it for whatever either this board or subsequent boards decide, I don't think one should be exempt over the other. So I think I say we turn it on right now, but just put it into the grandfathering with the rest of the previous businesses.
To comply within 10 years.
So they missed it by
Right now, and we're gonna have a conversation about dark skies and whether or not
Yeah.
you know, what we need to do for the business community anyway. And so, but then whatever we do decide, hopefully it will apply to all the historic businesses equally.
I could agree with that.
And I think then we can, have more of a conversation exploring like what are options for businesses that want to have a sign that's well illuminated, that's compliant, because I think we've all seen like, yeah, that looks kind of lackluster. Like, is that because of this dark sky thing? And I don't know if I can say, yes, it is. Maybe there's something else going on. Maybe I just want more information, but I don't think we need more information right now about this specific case.
This case. So I'm hearing an intention to allow the sign to be illuminated effective immediately with some language that this variance is, we want it to still be aligned with the current intention of the board to be dark sky compliant where things are becoming compliant in 10 years. Is that clear enough to staff and or Clayton? Is there a way in which we can grant that variance with that intention?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could be specific enough in your language that you're not going to open this up to like every sign. I mean, how many historic or existing, even if it's not historic, how many existing lit signs were in non-use when the lighting code was newly passed, right? Like how many of these situations can there be? And they just fell into a very unfortunate situation in that the business was closed and the use issue became an issue. So I think you can just exempt their sign from the non-use and determine that it was the intent and purpose of the code to grandfather something like that because the business was closed. How could somebody know that they needed to keep the sign on or when the new law was passed? So I think if you could use specific language that isolates this particular circumstance, then you're on solid ground and you don't have to worry about creating, multiple wide sweeping exemptions for everyone.
Okay, thanks, Clayton. So Gloria, the direction from the board is that we'd like to exempt this sign starting immediately, lighting it, and include it in the current intention of the board of like signs being made conforming according to dark sky within 10 years. And then it sounds like the board will also like to have a work session with a variety of questions that we have about what are the implications of dark sky compliance. I've heard, what are the implications of dark sky certification to our business district? What would it mean? What are other questions you like staff to pursue?
I'd like to see how other towns are doing with dark sky. I know Ridgeway is one of them, a dark sky community, Moab, Flagstaff.
I've represented Westcliff for a long time and they went dark sky while I was their town attorney.
Okay, Clayton will bring that
My
insight.
staff exempted their business corridor.
Westcliff is more of this. I'm very curious on what are the options? Are there tiers and options and areas? Go ahead, Jim.
Well, there are tiers and there are options. And there are also areas that we can designate that doesn't disturb our business corridor and actually encourages businesses. I have been for this, I'm gonna say this again, I've been for this since day one. With the thought that historic designation, national historic designation actually meant something and we were grandfathered in. Now we're being told it's different. I would like to discuss that as well. The Grand Imperial is on the historic registry. The lights on the building are over 50 years old. Lights are LEDs, they comply. There's some different conversations now around that. I would like to have those conversations. We have a hard enough time being an inviting community that is lit up and welcoming. We're also a community situated at 9,300 plus feet where you can walk 100 yards off our main street and you can't see your hand in front of you. I would really like to better understand the separation between the business corridor and residential, if there's other areas that we could designate that are still property of the town of Silverton, so that the town of Silverton can still have their designation while not impacting our little business corridor. And it is a small business corridor. And we have a limited time to produce taxable revenue for the town of Silverton. I really, really would like to see each and every one of us put on our thinking caps and really come to a compromise. I think a compromise is the word of the day for when it comes to this. And for the other businesses that are affected, some removed light fixtures and whatnot because they obviously were not compliant. I think we need to address them as well because they purchased businesses within 2025 and they were impacted as well. What I also want to bring up is this board did say that we would address any questions or any issues that came up over the first 12 to 18 months that we had implemented this, because there were things that we were really excited about that might not have the impact that we thought that they may need to be massaged, they may need to be changed, and they may need to be removed altogether. But we did say, and being honest, we did say this to one another, that we would address these. And I think having these conversations are good. Nothing is set in stone. We need to have good, hearty, healthy conversations. And compromise is the word of the day.
And I suspect there's a lot more that we agree on in terms of these priorities than we disagree on. So I think let's encourage information, not misinformation, and intentions of the board and staff. And I think there's a lot that there's overlap. Obviously, you're going to have outliers that will have very specific perspectives of what it should look like. But I think in general, there's probably a lot of overlap in what we're all trying to accomplish, both with a vibrant business district and preserving our dark skies for all to appreciate. So, okay, go ahead.
I think adding to the questions list is because Blair, the revitalization project, I know that those lights were gonna be dark sky, and that was like part of the whole thing was getting better lighting. So almost like, it's like a test case of like, because what I've heard from the dark side is that it will be safer and it will be better lighting because it's pointing down, not up, so it's just more efficient. So I'm like curious what maybe some of those renderings came back with of like, did those look like good lighting too? Like if we're doing this whole revitalization to make Blair Street better, then making sure those lights work for that project.
And we are trying to light Blair Street, so.
Yes.
We've been trying for years and we're working on it for years, but it's on the list.
Got money for it. Okay, other questions from the board if we pursue a work session on dark sky certification? What else do you need to get answered?
Shading.
Shielding.
Shielding. What that looks like, what types are there? Looking at you, Sarah.
I think what's hard probably for staff, but what's also helpful, I think, for the community and the board is to just kind of understand the implications, right? It's kind of like when we did the land use code, is we did mock-ups, we walked neighborhoods, we're like, what does this actually mean here? And I think that's where it's much easier to consider it in actuality as opposed to in theory. And the correct seems to be business area.
I guess my question is, do we grandfather in the other businesses now, like Alpine Tavern, Rendezvous, because like, are they gonna come ask us for a variance next meeting?
I think Carl had it right on the historic nature of this sign. And in that's kind of like where the exemption would stay in my mind.
Right, and I think we communicate to them, like, yeah, we hear that this is an issue across the business community and we're going to address it. We took this on immediately because this is a business that's planning to be open year round that has this historic sign. Those are like the unique things.
The Key Smokehouse closed for the season. Rendezvous just closed for the season, but the Alpine Tavern is open for the entire season? And I say that with a question mark. I'm seeing head nods. Do we do anything to help them out? I mean, that they took their light fixtures down.
But like, I think I still agree with Carl that like, this is the instance of like the historic designation. This has been brought over a series of like a month, but to the board. And that's where we start. And then as we do a new work session, we hear from the whole business community how they have been impacted and find solutions.
And maybe what I encourage the businesses or individuals, like, again, we are opening up this conversation again, right? We're wanting to look at the implications. What does this mean? And so for those folks who were originally, kind of the champions of the Dark Sky Initiative, we're happy to hear from you and kind of the original ideas behind this and what the implications and thought was. And from business owners who've been affected by our current lighting code and what to them may feel negative ways, then share that with the board by feedback, right? Again, staff is implementing the code that we told them to implement. And so if there are desires to have the code be something different, then it's good to hear the examples and the case studies that we can then talk about in our work session. And I feel like we can do that sooner rather than later, right? Like we have time to still keep working this out, but let's hear. And because things that I would like to talk about is I would argue that we shouldn't do it related to business hours because if somewhere's closed on Monday, but another business is open on Monday, maybe the lights should be on. Maybe if you're closed the whole season, no, but I would want to have a conversation around seasonality because I think it does contribute to this whole idea of what are we wanting on that business corridor. So I would encourage community members and businesses to share examples with us. Send us a quick email. It's really easy on the website to email all the trustees. I would copy Lucy and Gloria, and I would encourage trustees for us to get really clear about what do we think is important to us or what do we think is important to the community members we interact with as we think about both the business district and dark sky implications and certification. Because then I think we can have better clarity when we meet on overlined or overlapping priorities and values and find good compromises. I would say because it wasn't on the agenda, I don't think that we should consider other variances at this point. That would be my procedural suggestion.
Can we even consider it today? Like if it's not noticed, does that matter?
We can ask Clayton.
The current?
Like if we write a variant, if we have a variance for Dara, like I think we're all there. Can we even do that today?
That would be a Clayton question.
Clayton, did you hear that question? Sorry, I didn't call you in for that. Can we?
Yeah, I heard you. I'm sorry. I was
sorry.
messing with my stupid camera thing. So the trick with the variance is that there's a process that has not been triggered here. So I don't think granting a formal variance based on the application and things that are supposed to have happened could work. But I think the board could make the decision that they're not going to. Well, you could do it one of two ways. You could say we're not going to enforce the rule against, or we're going to we are deciding that because it's not particularly outlined in the code, I think you could say something along the lines of pre-existing historical signs are exempt from the use requirement or something along those lines. And just say, we're not going to enforce it against this, pre-existing historical signs that were out of use for less than, whatever, and just take it out because there's so much. You have the power to do the exemption and you have the power to grant a variance. My concern is that the process for the variance has not been completed, and I don't want us to skip the process, which includes hearings and the rights to appeal and all that would protect the community and the policy. But I do think that doesn't mean I don't think you can make the exemption. They're just very different things.
Do we need a resolution or anything?
So if
A verbal resolution is just as powerful as a written resolution. If you wanted to make the verbal resolution and direct staff for us to codify it in some written way so that the business owners have a paper to bring to the next board in 2 years, if this gets revisited, I'd be happy to write a resolution, or I'm sure staff would. But a verbal resolution now is just as effective.
Right, if we just say we're not going to enforce this sign, what's to say other businesses are also just like, well, I don't want to be enforced either, and keep letting their sign. And then my other thought there, and I'm asking these questions, I want to do this right.
Yeah.
And then how are we qualifying historic? Because I know Historic Society has sent a letter. So I think that could be used as it's historic based on the Historical Society's judgment, because they haven't received something from History Colorado that has said that so I'm just what's the qualifier for historic? And then how are we applying the law equally for not other businesses that also don't want to, or that we don't want to enforce that first part? You know what I'm saying? Okay. Sorry, that was complicated.
I mean, I think on the historic one, that might be kind of easy. I think we say it's documented, in use or existence for at least 50 years. I think that would be kind of a baseline, easy standard. I don't know about the rest.
Sorry, I know. I just want to make sure.
It's complicated.
Maybe this is a resolution about this sign in particular. We're not in the meeting saying, well, we're just doing selective enforcement. Instead, we're having a verbal resolution or we could direct staff to put it, let's see, we could have a resolution in the consent agenda, right? We could have a resolution in the next time's consent agenda that just specifies the historicity of 50 years, the board's intention. I'm sure Clayton could write it really great and we can include it in the consent agenda. Does that feel better, Lindsay?
Yeah, I just want to add some clarity.
Yes. And we can give staff direction that it can be lit tomorrow. And then we have an intention to have a work session on dark sky.
And including it for the 10-year timeline for right now. We'll have the work session.
Great. So in the resolution, including the 10-year grandfathered compliance. How does staff feel about that? Really
Good. I got the language in my head already.
great. Lucy's drafting it. There we go. Yeah. How does that feel to the board procedurally? And then again, the reason why we're not considering other signs, they're not on the agenda, that's a little bit different. We'd like to hear from affected business owners or businesses and other dark sky enthusiasts as we have our work session. Any other comments on this topic?
Let's wrap this one up.
Okay, great. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Works? Yes. Okay. Staff, you clear? Good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, community members, for your engagement. You're welcome to stay around.
The next part's fun.
Stuff on our agenda. Our most important policy document. All right, we're moving on. Thank you, board, for a good discussion. We're moving on to agenda item 8B, 2026 draft budget follow-up items.
Okay, let me share my screen here. And I don't have the best news for you.
Gloria, I don't know how many folks are gonna look at it. I just have a hard time seeing it if we're gonna do this share screen.
Yes.
Is it okay if we move it a little bit?
Yeah, and so this is what's in your packet as well. I was doing this,
Yeah.
it was transparent for our community. Yeah, and, okay, so since we talked, well, since the packet went out, I have some more changes that happened. So I kind of want to talk through them with you all.
Oh, boy.
So in the memo, it says that we've reduced the cleaning contract, including one development request for 12,000 per the finance committee. We updated the 2025 estimates based on September financials. The benefits were updated, the administration fees were updated, and I included the groomer since we had that conversation in March. Since this went out, I have updated the town and county line items for our IGA. I had a meeting with Willie on Friday, and the town's owing the county this year $36,909. It's high because this covers what we owed in 2023, which is around 7,000. And next year, we're projected to owe about 22,000. So that impacts our bottom line there. I also updated the sheriff budget from the placeholder of 400,000 to 383,000. So that did save us some money there, since I did receive that on Friday as well. And since then, I've also been working on updating our property tax line item. So there's a new legislation out restricting us from collecting more than 5.25% over the last highest year, which was actually 2024. And so this is different than Tabor. And this is why you've seen a ballot language for the county asking basically to be de-Bruced again, to have that exemption so that you can retain those funds. What I'm unclear about and what Clayton and I are meeting about tomorrow is that I'm pretty sure that the county's exemption does not apply to the town, and we would need to go out for our own voter approval for that.
And this is like the governor's initiative to try to provide property tax relief to property owners when property taxes went up so significantly. But then as a board perspective, there are implications to our bottom line.
The county is,
Because we're a statutory town, we have to comply with this rule. If we had been home rule, they don't have to comply with this rule. So another fun little fact there. As I'm unraveling this, I've found a couple calculations online that I'm definitely going to check with Clayton about, but basically that reduces the amount that we can collect on property tax next year. And this starts in 2026. So what that did was we had originally had, and I'll bring this up here, we had originally had, let's see, this one. Spending, okay, 550,977 as our total assessed, or what we would get on our mill of the total assessed value. And my best case scenario right now is about 500,000. So that we don't exceed that 5.2%. And that's even stretching it because I'm trying to, there's two scenarios that you can use, and I'm trying to use a second scenario, and I'm not sure if that's actually going to work. So it could come down significantly more than that. So what does that mean for our bottom line? That means that right over here, we have the difference between revenue and expenditures is $50,000.
Can you?
Wait, no, this is the wrong one. Hold
I was gonna say, yeah. And then
what does, if we were to adopt, so this is what I presented to you all at first, and with the reduced numbers, but then this property tax one really gets nuanced. So best case, I know I did that on purpose. I'm trying to find the other one with the property tax one. Okay. So if best case scenario with what I was doing with this is it would go down to 502, and that brings us over to our budget summary over here. And that puts us $1,000 revenue over expenditures. So you're still adopting a balanced budget. And you're going to be about $33,000 over reserve. So where I'm coming to you right now is we really can't afford to spend anything else until we know what our property tax revenue is going to be. And it's likely, this is the best case scenario.
worst case.
Worst case scenario. I was hoping you didn't ask that. Let me pull her up here real quick. So worst case scenario, and I'm hoping that this is the best case, but basically our property tax would have to be capped out at 448,000. So that is significantly less than where we're at now.
So with this with this governor's initiative, it's like a potentially $100,000 impact.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow.
When will we know what we're going with here?
Soon.
Okay.
I'm trying to get as many answers as I can.
Yeah.
Kim and I have met. It's not very straightforward at their level, and no one's given us, I'll show you what I use. So no one gives us a template for this because there's different ways that this law can be interpreted since it's so new. So what we're looking at now is kind of this is my working spreadsheet right now on how to get through this. And this is based off of just the code language. DOLA has provided a kind of a walkthrough, and that's how I got to this point. But there's no solid calculations. As you can see, there's approach 1 and approach 2. Which I hope to get more clarity on, but this is something that maybe next year we need to go out to the voters and ask them to retain that extra funding.
This has to be really affecting the county as well.
It's why it's on the ballot.
I know, it's why it's on the ballot, but like, it's huge impact for
Yeah, and then, I mean, it would be great to tag on to that one, but we are where we are right now, so.
We'll have to put something on the ballot for next year.
Yes.
Next November.
November.
Yeah.
Can you go back up to the memo one more time to remind us what the assumptions in the budget are? You've added the groomer back in.
Yes.
This doesn't include COLA. It doesn't include salary equalization. Like, just give us a quick review again of the assumptions of this revised budget from what we've seen it last.
Okay, so I just did that, but I'll do that again real quick.
To orient us.
All right, so we reduced the cleaning contract. We included San Juan Development's request for $12,000 per the finance committee. We have updated our estimates based on the September financials. Benefits were updated, administrative fees were updated, and the groomer was included. Now, on the memo, it has our outstanding items there, which included the COLA raise, it included our compensation adjustments, and it also included a fix to Kendall lift, the 145,000.
Kendall roof.
Kendall roof. And then it also included a new facilities, parks and rec position, as well as I did include a line item, and it kind of got cut off with the memo on, we are still getting unsolicited nonprofit requests, even though we never opened it, so.
So tonight you kind of need us to give you some final-ish.
I don't know if you guys have very much choice on this, honestly.
Yeah, totally. That's what we need to like really, yeah.
Like, that would be great, but, or we rearrange some areas in the budget to accommodate these needs.
Is there anything that you or Melina would directly suggest that you would shift around? I mean, we got to the point where we are, and those things were on the outstanding items list because they were still outstanding. So is there any other suggestions you guys have on?
I'm always going to advocate for supporting staff first. So I think projects can wait, but you might lose staff.
Can we hold off on the new employee?
Yep.
But like, can we though? Like, while maintaining staff, because.
Well, if you are maintaining staff, I would go with the compensation adjustment and the COLA first.
Yeah. Well, I guess, but the new employee though is like, support staff to not be overworked, right? So it's kind of like this like balance. of like meeting staff, is also supporting staff.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
But given the nature of the fact that we aren't going to be very much over revenue over expenditures, I would say that it's probably not as sustainable to add a new position at this time.
Okay, yeah.
Right. If we were 50,000 over for our revenues versus expenditures, then we'd say, okay, we can afford it this year, we can afford it next year. To me, I have big hesitation on considering anything in the outstanding list when we don't have our property tax valuation.
Agreed.
Yeah, and the finance committee, I mean, we tried to hit the sales tax number for next year much closer than previous years. Previous years, you know, we were not pretty, we were,
We built in a cushion.
yeah, we always gave ourselves like a lot of cushion this year. Let's try and get closer to that number and try and be more accurate. So I don't think there's gonna be a lot of room.
And that's one thing that I do want to bring up with the finance committee is after Clayton and I's meeting, we hopefully have more information for you all as far as what
I was gonna say.
that property tax.
The extra meeting.
Right, there's no reason.
These are.
Null and void.
There's no reason to meet with SFLC if there's no
Yeah.
consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Well, and I think we should also sort of consider planning on worst case scenario, not best case.
because really the budget you showed, that $34,000, I'll call it surplus, that's with the best case scenario.
Yes.
Yeah, so we, yeah. we don't-
And it's gone.
Which is what I'm hoping for, and Clayton will tell me it's legal tomorrow.
So can we even do anything here tonight?
There is not much to do, unless you all wanted to reprioritize funds in the budget.
So our options could be, we could give you some scenarios that said, okay, if the property tax plays out like this, we want you to do this. If it plays out like this.
Which is why I tried to give you a range of what it might look like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, if we're in a good case scenario, I will again support the COLA raises and the, you know, compensation study adjustments. So I'm always.
I agree. I would support that as a first pass because I think staff retention is super important for any projects we try to get done. I'd really like the board to consider ways to start working on additional funding for capital improvements. I mean, I think we've made efforts, right? We've invested in Kendall Lift. We invested in the visitor center. We built a deck. We have over time made capital improvement investments. We've done a number of things at the senior center. But I just think we've got to find ways to fund that. You know, I like some of the facilities and parks idea of having a person that can do more handyman stuff, can do more fixes and maintenance and ongoing stuff. So if we pursue that position in the future, I like the idea of using that to help invest in it, but we just have big ticket investments that need to be made. But I would probably argue too for first taking a pass at these two, number 1 and number 2 on the outstanding items list.
Agreed.
I mean. How many?
But yeah, number 1 and number 2, if.
If it's best case scenario.
You know, you guys, I don't know if we talked about this in the regular board meeting, maybe you guys talked about it in finance, like we changed some fee schedules last year, we got some pushback from people, the overall like impact, did we see much like cancellations from wedding venues or a lower rate at Mullis, thank you. Like I'm just like, I don't want to like extract more money out of people, but maybe there's something in like, it didn't, if it kind of worked.
I mean, the wedding venue can.
I don't know, I know it's like the only affordable wedding venue in Colorado.
And we have potential not just to book Kendall, and the thing is like, we could book Anisi, we could book Memorial. I mean, I used to go to a lot of weddings in Memorial, and I haven't seen one in the 4 years I've been here. So there's still potential to be marketing those venues a little bit more.
Yeah, an elopement package in the gazebo. I don't know, like, you know, what.
Stuff was addressed.
Yeah, like maybe there's just a more revenue generating outside of what we bring in from sales tax that we can think about. I don't know. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
have gotten.
No, I think it's an important thing and continuing to think about in Molus, what are our options for that as a revenue
And-
source? It
and
can't
what are we
fund
allowed to
housing.
use? Yeah, but.
Yeah, but can it fund the pit toilets?
Can it form recreation? Can it form something else?
Well, don't they need the pit toilets?
I mean, if it goes directly into stuff at Molus, I think that's the
Yeah.
best first use.
Like you get a pit toilet fee.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and actually, wait a minute, now that I'm thinking about this, is there a reason why does the Gensco contract come directly out of the Molus fund?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does. Okay, great. It's like, wait a minute, now.
It doesn't impact anything
It
else.
doesn't impact anything else. Yeah.
Pays for
The
itself.
Molus fund is our healthiest fund that we have.
Yeah, sorry.
And we did
got-
see, we did raise rates and did see a decrease
Yeah.
in visitors this year, so,
Morris?
yeah.
Okay.
Revenues were up, but actual visitors were.
The prices were up, so I think we need to let that
Okay.
level off.
And also, again, what do you know about it? What do we know about it? Were people booking? Bookings were down elsewhere, like it's
We had
just like.
fire ban, we
Yeah,
had bad weather, but.
yeah.
What we saw across the county, especially in town, as we are raising our rates, visitorship is decreasing and moving on to other areas where it's more affordable. And that's just natural. But we gotta pay for all those things.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying, like maybe there's the funds help raise the money for the capital improvements themselves, like
Mhm.
Willis
Mhm.
tries to raise the money for the new pit toilets. Kendall trying to raise money for all of the repairs that it needs.
Right, right. And there's a level at which you can only charge so much at Kendall because of the improvements that it needs. But yeah, so. Okay, so, but we need to hear from the board, if best case scenario, is anybody making a strong argument for any of the other outstanding things on the list or proposing a different philosophy for staff to recommend at the next revision?
And this would be the public hearing on the 10th,
November 10th.
November 10th, yeah.
Yep. Gloria's last week. And then if you get some information on the worst case scenario, then the board has to make some hard decisions on reserve levels or cuts in the budget, deferring things.
And do you have recommendations for those cuts in the worst case scenario? Or do we need, I'm just like thinking about timing.
I mean, I would rely on our financial policies for that, which
Yeah.
kind of lays out the priorities, where to spend those funds.
Okay.
Other suggestions or guidance? I would like to offer that you, with board direction, you communicate to our nonprofit partners that at this time we are not able to take or consider or fund supplemental requests.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I really want to know about the Creative District's mini grant program, and I just want to use their guidelines and then find a funding source for it. That's what I want. Is that board agreement direction that they does? Yeah. Including the preschool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
So I will cancel the meeting on
Tomorrow.
Wednesday. Today's Monday.
Today's Monday.
And you guys are meeting again tomorrow, the finance committee, to go over worst and best case?
No, we were gonna meet on Wednesday.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Wednesday as a follow-up with SFLC.
Okay, but now you're, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a tough one.
Oh, it was tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
That's what I thought.
Thought it was
I thought it was
Wednesday.
Wednesday, but
Was it?
The 28th.
Doesn't matter. It's canceled tomorrow.
No, it says tomorrow in the packet, 10/28 finance committee.
It was tomorrow, yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
that's.
I'm going crazy
You
a little
let
bit.
us know.
I will.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else?
I mean, I had it in my personal calendar as Wednesday.
Well, this may be a part of the budget, but I think
Doesn't matter.
Lindsay just brought up a good fact about Mullis Lake Campground. Reinvesting some of those funds that we have in the bank into building out. So we have additional inventory so that we can generate more money off that.
Okay.
I think that's neat. I think that'd be,
And I know we're restricted on spending all this stuff on housing, but can we spend it on our other parks if
That's what I want to look into.
if it's healthy enough and like it's doing great, if we can put some into Memorial Park so we can have weddings there or whatever.
Or Kendall's roof.
Or the park program.
Yeah, so when I hit the wall on that we couldn't use it for housing, I kind of stopped there, but I'm happy to reopen that because I still have all the documentation and get you that answer.
Sarah said, better together. I did, but I wanted to credit you for that.
The sense of togetherness.
All right, is there any other missing bank account that we can find any money from? Ready?
We already did that.
Community notice.
We need to,
It's the egg in the top.
yes, it's egg.
It's the
The egg.
secret treasure.
Yes, we're spreading misinformation. You can't use your headlights in town and the egg has treasures. That was, at least we're not the only community that has misinformation about.
One
tiny
headlight.
things. One headlight. Only have one headlight. Pin it down. Fielded. With eyelashes.
I made you
Like
agree with
Herbie eyelashes. is the
I
only-
gave you my word. We're gonna do shielding. We were gonna do shielding.
Okay, Gloria, you just have direction. The board doesn't really have a lot of discretion to direct you to do anything else because we don't have a lot of discretionary funding. So, any other questions, board, on the budget? No, okay. So then we put the SFLC letter on our agenda for agenda item 8C. I have no problem with this, but I would strike the first bullet point because we are not adding them as a. Does anybody else have proposed? Congratulations on the award. Or Lindsay, you mentioned that you had a few questions, or comments.
Yes, sorry.
That's all right. I can give everybody a moment to get oriented.
I guess, yes, my question was like, where are we sending this? What's this?
Yeah, was this a generic letter of support?
Okay.
Yes,
I just have on file for,
Okay.
when they're doing grants, they don't need to come back to us every time.
So I was like, to whom am I concerned? I was like, who is that? Not concerned.
Okay.
They have it and it's at least something more than just saying, we support you.
Yep.
And they don't have to wait for a board meeting to get a approval. To get a letter.
Yep. Any other edits that the board would like to propose?
Are we? Oh, I'm just wondering, like, what we can do in a like, without directly funding FSLC, if there's other opportunities to support them. And I don't know if that's for discussion right now, so. That's more as a charge of like, have this, what do we do with it?
Well, one thing that came up when we decreased our support for the creative district was finding other in-kind options, you know, whether that was the office space and storage space.
Yeah.
Certainly I have made intentional efforts to show up to any possible event when the creative district folks were here, making an intention that we were present. So I think this line item that's like, supporting facility improvements through in-kind services and expedited permitting. You know, I think there's some generic enough stuff on here for a letter of support. What I hear you asking is there anything else we could do?
Yeah.
And maybe that's an ongoing brainstorm with FLC. Tyler and I encouraged them as we met that, again, the county does collect the county has a revenue source that is voter approved to support childcare. So that's a great place to start. And they have pursued that, but I think continuing to help us all appreciate that there are revenue sources that are not just at the town level that have been voter directed to be spent on certain things like childcare. And so making sure that they're taking advantage of those sources that are voter directed is helpful. So if there's things that we can do to help support that. I know that what they presented to us, so the update from the finance committee was that they're pursuing a ballot initiative for the future as an option to potentially have a very specific revenue source for childcare. And again, I think that would be
Against the bed tax, against the lodging tax,
Right.
sorry, against the lodger's tax.
Yeah. Yeah. But voters did approve to spend a portion of the current lodging tax on childcare and housing.
And have they done any, and do you guys know if they've done any state outreach, like state legislative outreach? I'm just like, part of the problem here was the new law and the way it's written. And so I'm curious if if this is a letter that we can send to Katie Stewart, of this is the problem we're having. Here's our letter of support. They're meeting right now to do budget work.
Yeah. We asked them, we said, look, we were more than happy to provide that kind of advocacy role. I think the tricky part for the preschool is that in general, universal pre-K is a pretty great program. It just happens that for rural communities like ours, and we're so unique because we're so tiny, it just disproportionately affects us because it's based on enrollment, and you just never have the enrollment to sustain.
Tiny and seasonal.
I know, but then that's
tiny and seasonal.
That's like, of course, then if we lose it, then we're not gonna have any enrollment, and it's just,
No, but I think that's a good question, Lindsay, and I think Gloria, as you reach out to them, and I know they'll be discouraged if that meeting's canceled, just saying the board is here to help be your advocates.
But they can still provide the information that we requested, and we can still digest that on our own.
Yeah.
And reach out for options and ways.
I'll forward that one.
Oh,
Yeah. So.
Colonel locked me up.
Oh.
I'm apparently a threat.
So threatening.
Threat assessment. Put that down.
So an encouragement could be, what I hear you saying is that the preschool, if they have kind of advocacy letters that they'd like the board to sign on to, share those with us, and I'm happy to consider it. Yeah. Okay. Did you have anybody have other thoughts on this draft? Besides striking the first bullet? Anything else? No? Okay, we don't need an emotion. No, staff direction.
Direction, yeah.
All right, moving on to committees. Committee report, the finance committee. We kind of
Covered everything that we talked about, I think.
Go ahead again if you'd like.
Okay, any other questions from the board on finance committee? Moving on to personnel and ordinance committee.
We went over our marijuana code again, the updates with a few more edits to make, and then it should be coming to you all soon. And then the Creative District is proposing some public art framework, some different things around surrounding public art in our code. That will be coming to you guys soon as well. They're looking to create a committee and to have some pre-designated sites to make it easier for people to do murals and public art in town.
Yeah, it's kind of like a framework for future grant funding. So we already have a pathway established. Some kick-ass murals.
No budgetary items.
I'm excited about the murals, all right?
Great, thanks P and O committee, appreciate that. San Juan Regional Planning Commission.
Yes, San Juan Regional Planning Commission. Oh, I don't have my.
Wait, sorry, my notes were all confused. Just kind of a short meeting, actually. One short-term vacation rental has been recommended to the county commissioners over on Red. How do you say his last name? Darwin?
I can spell it out.
Flom? Anyway, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. As you're heading up to McMillan, there's that property on the side there. The challenge with Red, as always, is parking. So speaking of compromise, we had a great brainstorm session on how they can help create more parking by providing more plowing through their CAT up on Red so that their guests have a place to park.
It'd be the homeowner, the property owner providing that.
Yeah.
Working with the county to provide more parking up there,
They have a snow CAT up there. So.
which is really cool.
And then Melissa Childs has been reappointed to the Historic Preservation Committee under the planning.
Thank you, Melissa, for your years of service. Great. Anything to add? You're good?
No, that was it. It was a
Great.
relatively short meeting. It was fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There was an all business owners chamber members meeting. I could not attend because I had to be in 3 places at the same time. Jim, any update from that? Are you?
As I voiced earlier, we discussed everything from trends and forecasts to town of Silverton and lighting. What can we do to help each other out? We discussed real solid numbers throughout the region. And what we did see is that Durango is up, Uray is up by 3 to 5 points in each location, but we are down 4 points. So
Is it for what time period?
this is overall.
In
Overall,
2025.
2024, 2025. What we're seeing is folks are driving through, we're seeing the cell phone pings. Big Brother is watching. They're stopping in, they drive around, they maybe grab a bite, they maybe buy a t-shirt and then they move on. And how do we better message and better market ourselves as a community that's willing, we're open, wanting?
Spotlight.
All of the W's.
That signal. That's the
Nope,
solution.
can't be like. Sarah's gonna punch you for it.
Right there.
See? Look, she's already raising her hand. It was actually a very good conversation. We had everyone there. And it was a very healthy conversation about where we're going as a community, as far as the business sector. And the challenges ahead of us, because there are a lot of challenges. Pivoting and recalibrating from where we've been over the past 4 to 5 years with regards to the huge COVID wave that hit us, and really reassessing to where a lot of the numbers that we're seeing are back prior to COVID. And we just have to be cognizant as business owners and as a community and try to really work with one another. And knowing that we have limited staff, knowing that we have these time periods of when we need to be helping each other.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
Well, I appreciate the intention of the board to hear reasonableness and work with businesses. I think
Yeah.
it's important. Yep. Okay, any other committee meetings then? All right, open discussion, future agenda items. Coffee with the mayors tomorrow, 8:30, elevated coffee. Bring your thoughts, concerns, issues. A question I posed to the board is we have had several comments on the property in question at the entrance of town on Green Street and regarding use. And is there any interest in contemplating variance related to that?
And they can't technically apply for a variance.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, so variance is not the right word, exemption, conversation.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
I just wanna make a few notes here, and I think it's actually warrants a further conversation. I was on the planning commission when they came before us, and I reviewed the video of when they came before town. And 2 key things during the planning commission, their architect came before the planning commission and said that they were not interested in the short-term rental because it was not possible to have a short-term rental in the blue zone in the avalanche district, or in the avalanche zone. So
Why they built the retaining wall.
which is why they haven't built yet. So they made it very clear that they were only interested in a long-term rental in that location, like repeatedly saying that they were only interested in a long-term rental. And that it was not going to be possible to have a short-term rental. And then during our meeting, that following week, this was like May 2024, Ron actually asked a question about short-term rental, and they said they were not, the architect on behalf of the Gransons said that they were not planning on building a short-term rental. They weren't setting it up for that, and they were interested in building long-term rental in that space.
But what we did learn a lot about was windows.
We did. We learned a lot about windows and
Learned a lot about windows for about 40 minutes.
I guess I'm bringing this up because I think we heard as this board, that they were not going to be building a short-term rental. And so that was not, like, as we were reading the land use code, that's what we heard. And I think that validated changing the zoning from BP to R2. Wait, R1.
R2.
R2, I always forget. I think it's relevant for the conversation. I think it's like, if they want to come make their case, but that was never the intention before.
And they can still long-term rental.
Well, what I don't know, because so when we had the planning commission meeting, this was under the previous code, and I cannot remember if short-term rental is allowed in an avalanche zone, right?
I do remember that meeting though, when
Yeah.
they came to talk about the avalanche zone and their plans to work around it.
It was.
And I very specifically remember that point of discussion. This idea that big selling point of our project is that we're building another long-term rental.
Local people who want to live and work here is what they said to us on May 28th.
Yep. And they can still do that. They can still long-term rental, member of the community.
Right.
Great. I'm not hearing any intention to put that as a agenda item for a future memo. Great, okay.
Yeah. They said they wanted a long-term rent.
All right, anything else? Open discussion?
I'll just bump up, Louise came and gave like, I don't know, I felt moving testimony about the significance of the SNAP funding ending for people in our community. I mean, that's like 43 households, potentially families who will not be able to spend money in town. That's $8,000 for 1 month impact on likely like our local grocery store. So
Yeah, not just the families, but
the larger impact here. I mean, it's like, but it was like a little over 8,000, what she said.
Close to 9.
Close to 9. And
people around $200 per person.
yeah.
And many of those dollars are spent in this community.
Yeah, like just, I don't know. I know we have a lot of big things we talk about, but that seems like a really big deal for this town and figuring out some way to pull resources together to help families.
And one thing I encouraged the work group to do, I said this is very much an option for the board. I didn't commit the board to signing on to anything, but if they wanted to draft and add some sort of letter or something that they would like us to share, policymakers, legislators, whatever, that's something the board could certainly consider, depending on what the message was or what the intention was. Yeah, and just a reminder to folks, the library food pantry is stocked and again, often has fresh meat or frozen meat, but doesn't just have pantry staple items. And the senior center has a few things, and I know food banks are trying to beef up their support, and also there are fewer dollars for some of these things. So, yeah, if you want to make a donation, if anybody wants to make a donation to any of the regional and local food banks, donation to the library for their food bank and direct the spending to food for our region. For
10 a.m. tomorrow.
Yeah, the work group meeting.
No, I'm really glad she showed up tonight, running the food bank out of the Grand. I ran it during COVID. I can tell you that the support wasn't anything like it was 5 years ago. So I'm very, very happy that we're discussing this because it is a real thing.
That impacts
Very
neighbors.
pleased. Yes, our friends and neighbors.
All right, thanks for mentioning that, Lindsay. Anything else? Okay, the time is 8:13 and I'll adjourn the meeting. Sorry, closing public comment. We have closing public comment. Sarah, thank you for staying on time for us.
She's gonna get in.
You're gonna put up the bat signal.
One, I would just like to thank Lucy. I just wanted to reiterate how much work she's been putting into the Dark Sky program alongside with me. She's worked with many different business owners on compliant lighting, gone back and forth with business owners. So I really think that we need to celebrate her work that's been put into this. And just thank you for helping out with the Dairy Deli. And I hope we can come to an agreement in support of our businesses in the Main Street District. Lastly, the Silverton Powerhouse did receive a grant for operations, and they can use it towards utilities and for the building as well. They received $6,000. And Salem Development helped write a letter of support for them and review their application. So I wanted to let you all know that they also received a grant too, because one day everyone received a ton of funding, so which is great. But they were notified a couple weeks ago as well. So yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. And online public comment, apologies. I'm jumping the gun here.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Two things. When you think about the dark sky issue, the only place in Colorado where you're going to have another town with a higher altitude is Leadville. So selling the dark sky is come to our gorgeous volcanic caldera and look at the stars. That is actually going to be very important. The other thing that I want to remind you is that even numbered years are for elections, odd numbered years are for tax issues. So you won't be having a tax issue on the county ballot next year. It'll be during the odd year.
Thank you. Do you have any other online public comment? Okay, seeing none, it's 8:16 and I will adjourn this meeting. Thanks, guys. Sorry, Sarah, thanks for hanging out.